Ew. What's going on with this hair, man? Psycho hair. What's up, though, folks? Day 2 of our little stream review 2025 journey odyssey. We are game 51. Cutting this part out just because green space to work with. Doesn't matter that much anyways. We'll start here in a few. Kind of go back over what we've done, I guess, so far. So, I guess just for reference, I don't do the best ones until we've done all the ones I think are good or shit or whatever. Kind of just start with like one thing and then we go back over and then really pick out cream of the crop, I guess. I'd already know some of these. Sometimes it's when you get it in reference, it's a little different. Yeah, a lot of good stuff played this year. It's up to this mostly good stuff. Yeah, so decided for replays, I'm not gonna play some. Oh, we will talk about them. And I generally DLC, big DLCs and expansions. I just put in there. Spend a lot of time on them. Why not? It's my own personal little list. I don't have to have it be like some kind of fucking industry standard or nothing like that. I mean, I wouldn't count an expansion normally, if I was trying to make it like super crazy, but as far as like just strong experiences that, I spent more than like 10 minutes on, which I mean, that doesn't mean it's not worth playing either, but a 10-minute, expansion to a game. Something of more significant. I'll count it in there. We'll see how my throat is today. I was a little tired yesterday, but I think I was snoring the cold and I was on my back last night, so might already be a little raw. So 52 is Mario Kart 64. The last one's 124. So we're like over a third. Probably spend all day on this. Or I'll split it up. We'll see. Tomorrow I got work. If I do manage to finish today, maybe we'll do the best games and all that tomorrow. And then maybe the day after that we'll just actually start some new shit. So. Or I'll take my time with it. We'll see. Well, could put on some chill music and get started on it, really. Why it's always gotta fuck up. It is. Usual. For some reason, you're watching this VOD. There is music playing under the stream. I don't think this would be DMCA music or anything, but you can put on your own music. It's not important to the stream. I'll unmute if we want to listen to something in particular for a game. So, but yeah, guess we'll get started. Yeah, so did a Mario Kart series playthrough this year. In time for Mario Kart World. Well, I was a little late. Went ahead and did that. Cool thing about doing it. Why is everything out of order, too? Mario Kart 8, like deluxe. It's like the top. Should not be the case, but it's not a big deal. Um, anyways, yeah, actually, I'm just gonna. Weird. Yeah, so decided to go through all the Mario Karts. I just did every stage once and tried each mode out for a little bit. If it had extra, difficulties like 200cc, we did that. On a fair amount of tracks. And it was all multiplayer, which was really cool. So I had to use a mix of net play and other methods and stuff. So, but yeah, did that with Sam chiefly, but yeah, Cactus and all sorts of other people in there for most of them. So yeah, started at Mario Kart 64, the one I probably played the most in general. Probably hard to separate it a bit from nostalgia, but going back and playing it, not the tightest mechanics. Obviously the feel of the drifting and all the items and stuff is a little more refined these days. But I feel like the charm is still really strong. The old low poly, super saturated, just all very colorful tracks, lots of variety. It's really cool. They're more simple too. They kind of have like a place, right? Mario Kart 8, really great. One thing is, the tracks, because they're going for all this anti-gravity and glitz and glamour exploding everywhere, can be a little busy and can kind of sometimes lose a sense of like identity, right? Some of Mario Kart 64 tracks, it's just a mountain with a train going through it with really good Koji Kondo music, which is probably the big highlight. Um, Probably not like my favorite in terms of like just like raw feel and amount of tracks and stuff, but probably one of the most charming ones for me still. And the the sprites on 3D backgrounds and stuff is an interesting look. But these are all out of order. Why? Probably because I put them all in at once on my actual list, so they're not in like the right order. put these in the right order. It's not a big deal, mind you, but why not? Anyways, did Super Mario Kart as well. My least favorite. Mario Kart, the original. The tracks are repetitive. A lot of them are the same tile set or tile, visual style, and they just kind of remix the rest. It not being 3D completely instead of it doing like the weird mode 7 thing. Cute for the time, not really good in the long run. It's definitely more of a compromise than it is like the dream. Seeing there's an object you could crash into and it's just a tile on the ground, it's not really as exciting or as easy to react to. Um, Obviously, there's other stuff going on. It's not all just tiles on the ground and shit. Um, Actually, this might be fucked now because I'm doing this in a weird order. Let me just scroll to okay. Yeah. I think for the time it's really cool. All the different characters popping in there. It's still very charming and colorful for then. Like I said, the lack of variety. I think the horrid AI on the harder difficulties, especially. The infinite items they have, the unique abilities, which I like the unique abilities. The auto aiming, um, the rubber banding, the rivals kind of system just makes for a kind of a pain in the ass time instead of like a solo party thing or just like a really good feeling solo racer. For the time, still has good feeling mechanics. There is cool drifting. The characters do all feel very different. I think it's one of those where you start to get kind of a feel for the nuances of it, and it's really not too bad. It's mostly the um, visuals and how that fucks with the gameplay, the variety, and stuff like that that really hurts it. Still cool, but definitely my least favorite. So. It was worth replaying. I wasn't sure if I was going to, but I think Sam talked me into it. It was fun to do because of the co-op. So yeah, the first one that wasn't a replay this year was Super Circuit. Where is that in here? Oh, that was it. There's not a good attract mode for Super Circuit. I'll have to use this long play. Yeah, so Mario Kart Super Circuit is in the style of Super Mario Kart, but on the Game Boy Advance. I think it's kind of just the Super Nintendo one, but just better in most ways. A lot more variety of visuals and maps. Some of the same problems with like 3D objects, but because there is a bit more like color and art style variety and stuff, and I think the controls are a little tighter and just in general better map making. Those issues really aren't as big a deal. As far as like rubber band cheaty bullshit, I don't really recall much of that. I mean, obviously we were playing with a few people, so it's mostly all just us against each other. Still not enough track list. I don't think it holds up to like the best in the series, but there is something about the Super Mario Kart, style that the GBA one and the SNES one have that adds to more complicated level design and difficulty, which is kind of cute. Like you can kind of see it here even this level. There's little things you gotta like slide through and stuff. Instead of big kind of crazy mechanics, it tends to be a bit more focused on just like raw difficult turns, and it doesn't have to have a sense of place in the level, kind of like an old F-Zero thing. It's just raw track, so there is an appeal to that. So it's kind of fun and more of like a kind of a movement way there. um it doesn't have to like go along the side of like a mountain that looks right. It's just shit everywhere, so that's cool. Yeah, definitely better than Super Mario Kart. I would call it good, relative to the rest of them. Um, I don't think it's that great. I don't think it was. I would put it very high on the list. I probably did a tier list at the end. I don't remember exactly where it placed if I did. Um, but it is cool. So definitely probably more satisfying just raw racer than something like Mario Kart 64, but kind of lacking in some of the charms and stuff like that, and obviously production value that I think a lot of the series is kind of the appeal is from. So yeah. Next up, Double Dash. This was a replay. I don't know if I actually owned Double Dash back there. I rented it a lot. Yeah, I probably did. It's probably sitting over there. But yeah, Double Dash, the GameCube one. I think this one's really cool. This one also has some kind of interesting control feel, especially with the different weights and how you set up the double player thing. It's really cool for co-op. That was funny. I was trying to do that as Cora, Cactus, Sam, and I. I think this one's pretty good, pretty solid as far as Mario Karts go. Still very colorful and charming, having like the mixed um, teams with like special unique abilities and stuff, and even more colorful stages with even more creativity and stuff. You know, there is like a charm to the old low poly stuff, but as far as GameCube goes, you know, they have a little bit of that like Vaseline to them, but nothing like Mario Kart Wii where they look like they're got dipped in like a fucking wax fucking vat. Yeah, Double Dash was really good. It was nice replaying it. Like I said, there's definitely some difficulty. It's got its own feel, but it's a good one for that. Um, yeah, interesting one. I kind of wish they'd bring some of these sort of gimmicks back, especially like trying to mix them into multiplayer. But kind of more the party days, and you need to be able to speak to each other a little bit. They could probably refine like a tag system where you could kind of know they want to tag. It's a great one for just being goofy. It's probably the most fun multiplayer one, being a goofy goober. So. Up on my arm or what? Not really. Clearly not. It's my back. I don't want to make coffee. Get energy drinks. So forgive me a little bit. So next up is what is it? Way too much effort to try to get this fucking halfway decent. Yeah, next up, Mario Kart Wii. So Mario Kart Wii, I played quite a bit back in the day. I think right off the cuff, the fucking shittiest, one of the shittiest like UIs and menus. I hated the pure white, just completely soulless, just fucking nothingness of a lot of these old ones. I know these old. That's not that old. The middle ones. Um, I think trying to incorporate motion controls, all that was cute. Overall, it's got a good track list, good new shit, good retro shit. It feels really strong. I don't really like the like wax look of everybody. They've kind of got this like shiny wax thing going on. But overall, I don't know. I don't feel super strong about it. I know this one is like the best gameplay for some people. I know it's supposed to be a cool speedrunning one. I think introducing of the bikes was neat. They're pretty fun, and it's kind of cute doing the wheelies. kind of playing in your straightaways and adding that kind of bit to the gameplay was kind of cute instead of like the chaos of like co-op like and double dash or just like more difficult movement. I would say it's like harder to like just do a turn and like double dash, and it's very easy on that front. It's the drift is a lot closer to what you see in the newer stuff, but they introduce more wacky stage stuff or different kinds of weight class customization and the bikes stuff. So those have their own mechanics. And I don't remember if Double Dash had the speed up from sitting behind people, but that's cute. Overall, I mean, I don't feel like super duper strong any which way about Wii. I think it's a clean Mario Kart game. I think it's I could see it being an upgrade for some people. I could see it, being a high point with the online. I think on the Wii, especially when there's not that many games, it was probably pretty cool for that. Yeah, I don't feel super strong on it. I think it's good. I mean, like it's not like the best of the bunch for me, but it's far from the worst. So I think they always did a good job of either doing something a little bit new or just kind of improving every time. Or yeah, where's the DS one? Why I have it so deep? I didn't think about it when I was putting it together. Next, I did the DS one, or maybe it was before. I'm not exactly sure. So yeah, I would say the DS one I thought was better than the Wii. If I only think it tried to go a little bit harder on the amount of content. The single player modes are kind of ballsy for Mario Kart. The online stuff was really cool at the time. I mean, obviously we had that too, but there's something a bit more playful about the DS one. Like, all the little parts you could do to like customize shit. I don't know. I thought it was neat. Still had a really nice look to it, retro and new shit. I don't think it's like the all timer of the series, but I think it's pretty high up there. Really, the big thing I didn't like about it was probably how the weird drifting works, the boosts. Having to cheese grater my thumb, there's not really much getting past that. I think it kind of kills it a bit for something you do all the time. It's just very unintuitive and shitty. But overall, I like the idea of like the challenge modes where you'd have to kind of do things you wouldn't normally do in Mario Kart in a single player format with bosses and other weird unlockables. We went ahead and did them all. I did them at a high enough difficulty to unlock the secret shit and all that. So, which was fun. That was kind of its own little game because I mean, just going through the stages of these. Yeah, I like when the characters don't influence the stats. Totally fine when it's just vehicles, but yeah, it sucks when the characters do. Because I mean, Mario Kart, as much as like Musou or something, is almost like a fan service kind of event. Being able to pick your favorite goofy ass character and still, not having to take like a gameplay hit or customizing a vehicle as the gameplay thing, I think makes more sense. So. Which a lot of the games like Double Dash and stuff did, and all the old ones were character specific. So, I mean, for conversation and stuff, for the longevity of the games, kind of cute, like talking about the X character being this way and that way. But I think nowadays, for the amount of characters you can play, and the amount of different vehicles and that kind of customization you can do, they weren't thinking about that back in the day. They were like, oh, everybody's just on a cart, of course. So if there's going to be stat differences, it's going to be characters, right? Now it's like there's so many characters and they don't just drive carts, they're driving dragsters, they're driving motorcycles, just have all of it be there. I'd agree with that. I think that's what World does, right? I don't remember. But yeah, having two big heavies and double dash was pretty wild. But anyways, yeah. DS was cool. I had never gone through all the single player, but I did play a fair bit of the multiplayer back in the day, so in a way it was kind of a new thing, but kind of not as well. So maybe you could count it as a replay, maybe not. It's whatever. Anyways, Mario Kart 7. Mario Kart 7, obviously so close to Mario Kart 8, is very similar. I thought 7 was really good. It doesn't have all the extra modes and extra bullshit. Oh, also Double Dash probably had like the best combat games. Had some really crazy tracks that would change for the battles and stuff. A lot of the later games are not good about it, especially 8. Well, they added some different stuff to 8. So. But yeah. 7 brings the air stuff and like the all-terrain vehicles and all that shit. You know, like a Diddy Kong Racing or something. Those are cool. I think the drifting is, getting close to its most crispy feeling. I think the stages are very creative and colorful and crazy. Um, you get all the customization and stuff you tend to get in 8 at this point, so it's cool for that. It is like a proto 8, but it has its own cool stuff. And it's still just good, right? It doesn't matter that 8's like the king or anything. It's good in its own right. It's worth a play. If your handheld ones you liked, them taking little chances with single player, like with the DS. Sadly, they don't really bring that back to World. They don't bring it back in a great way. Yeah, Double Dash was awesome. Gyro gimmicks, man. Fuck all that. Hidden character stats. Yeah, I don't remember much about it, but you're right. Yeah, I mean, it's really every one of the games has it. It's like World's the one where I feel like they kind of get rid of it, the amount of dudes, but I think they probably considered it like a staple. But I think there's so many other elements to the strategy, it's unnecessary to kind of mess with that element of it. And now they got like costumes and shit too, so. Obviously, I didn't spend forever on each of these games. We did all the stages once and moved on, so I don't feel extremely strong about some of them, like 7. But I recognize it as a really good one, so but I don't have a lot of deep thoughts on it beyond that. Not that it's gonna be that deep anyways. Yeah, I always just pick an 8 based on fan service and shit. That's just me. Oh, 7 had the best Rainbow Ride as well. It was pretty cool. All of them have good music as well, mind you, but some of the Koji Kondo stuff is still some of my favorite, but 7 and 8 have pretty varied soundtracks. You kind of get the big band thing that they like to do in 8, but good stuff in there. World has a really good soundtrack. It's more like a random assortment of like remixes and shit, but it's good for what it is. My throat's already hurting from fucking snoring, I guess. It doesn't affect us too much. I'd say Deluxe was the best for me, but I respect like the Wii and the DS one the most. The DS has like the most interesting bonus features. Wii's just a pretty clean feeling game, but I like the feeling of the drift stuff in 8, well 8 Deluxe especially. I like 200cc a lot. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's got the most stages. It's got the shittiest stages as well because it's pulling from like the Paris ones and all the different, capitals and shit. Those are lame as fuck, but they're kind of cute. But and I mean, you do have to pay. It is DLC, but there's a lot of really good ones, a lot of good throwbacks, a lot of good new ones. I think the mechanics, the feeling of just the drifting is probably its most refined. I think the item bullshit is probably at its worst. So, um, if I remember right, this was the one that probably had the most annoying item bullshit. Um, but it just feels really good to run around and play. Everything's pretty refined. I mean, some of the anti-gravity stuff, like I said, can make some of the locations feel a little messy instead of like having like a sense of place, like a theme or something. Sometimes you're just kind of upside down and you don't really know what the fuck's going on. You're just going. But usually it's not a big deal. Um, Maybe not the most charming. It's also got that fucking UI, but whatever. Yeah, it didn't bother me too much, but it kind of depends, I guess, on how much you're playing it. Right? People who play these nonstop are gotta be more competitive with them, and they've gotten more and more competitive since the online's got more robust, and people have kind of settled with them for longer. And 8 and Deluxe were out for so long. You're gonna have a lot of people who are just left who are um, kind of could develop skills, right? Um, yeah, I generally just pick if I'm just going casual for fan service or something like a Rosalina or a fucking Kong or a Bowser or some goofy, right? Um, but like a boo's in. Yeah, you pick low tier so that you can you can blame it on the tier every time you lose. Yeah, base strat. You gotta have your scapegoat. You should be grateful for hidden character stats so you can blame stuff. Oh, really? That's a shame, man. I don't think I played many of the Animal Crossing characters. Yeah, I definitely don't like that element to it. What's up, Outcast? I do think that, like I said, if you're playing these more competitively, I'm coming from a very casual viewpoint. We played through all these one time a piece. I replayed them back in the day, and I did play a lot of Mario Kart 8. I'm counting Deluxe as a different entry, even though it's really not. But, it does have a better battle mode, and obviously more tracks. But um, I think if you're more into the competition side of it, it's a very different conversation. But for me, visual charm, music, um, the amount of tracks, the creativity in them, the general feel of like movement and how accessible it is to optimize. I know not strats you gotta learn over like 50 hours, but I could play 10 Yeah, I could play over all the courses and I'd get, better by the end of it significantly. Yeah. That's kind of where a lot of it is for me. I like 8 for that quite a bit. Regardless on tier list, yeah, I mean, we did that already, but it is good. The better of the Mario Karts. Yeah. DS is good. DS is the one that a lot of people have. Um, oh, this is also Mario Kart 8. It doesn't matter. Um, yeah, I think DS is one there's a lot of nostalgia for good reason. Absolutely. Like I said, it tries to do things the rest of the series doesn't, but I think being an early online contender definitely helps for a lot of people. That's usually the kind of stories you hear about. It's good for that. Those are big hidden stats. Yeah, I don't know why they try to hide that stuff, but then still include it as much as they do. I don't know if they think it like sparks like a discussion or what. The problem is these days there's so many granular choices on vehicles and vehicle customization that the stats are in play and they're more obvious. I mean, in World you have to like press a button or maybe it's deluxe to even show the stats, but they're definitely there. I don't remember. Like I said, I don't think World had character stats. Like I said, it's would be the right call, but I could be wrong. Anyways, Mario Kart World. I think this is a good game. I think it's got its issues, and I think more of it comes from less the mechanics, because I think the mechanics are some of the series' best. Um, and more from a introducing ideas like the big open world and exploration and completely under executing and um what's the word for it? There's a lot of lost potential kind of thing. Yeah, maybe not. I mean, there's a lot of characters in it. So maybe not. I didn't spend enough time with it to really get a feel for that. I generally just played Boo or Pauline in tight leather, and that was kind of my thing. So, no, I guess I played Daisy too in short shorts. Oh, and the cow's base. No, I switched characters a lot. There's a lot of characters. Obviously, the most characters. I think visually, it's probably the most refined the series has been. It gets rid of like the Vaseline look of like we. Um, I think it has a lot of creativity, very colorful. I mean, it has that like gray fucking like volumetric fog bullshit that every fucking single game has nowadays, but it doesn't make it seem like totally shit. But yeah, the wall riding, a lot of the little nuances like that are kind of cool. Seeing people actually play up with that, um, kind of impressive. Oh yeah, fucking Charging Chuck, man, he was awesome too. The cow is pug. But yeah, it doesn't have obviously at this point as great a track selection as like your 8 Deluxe. Granted, 8 Deluxe took a long time to get there. But it just doesn't have that great of a track selection in general. They're good tracks, they're just not like a shitload. But really the biggest problem with it is that its selling point, the world part, is both a detriment to a lot of the modes and is underutilized and is kind of a disappointment in its own right. So there's not really much to do in the world. Running around and hitting collectibles occasionally for no reward or with um, no real driver to do so is pretty lame. It's cool to just drive around and have the songs randomly play and fool around a little bit. They want you to kind of do it in between lobbies, which easier said than done. Usually that's not very long. They patched it recently to even allow you to do some of this with your friends. There wasn't even really like a mode, and still I don't think there is a full mode to like just travel around the world with your little crew and kind of grab shit and chill. There's entire games like The Crew that are like based on that kind of idea, so that they can even do even a little bit was kind of goofy. Change tunes here. A minute. That most of the competitive modes and multiplayer modes in general try to weave in traveling from each location as part of the race. And because of the world design, that means you're doing a lot of straight lines, which are insanely shit. I wouldn't even count them as a course. They're super boring. It's just you driving in like a huge straight line with like a couple gradual turns, fighting people. It's pretty much always a sandbag game. Even in a casual sense, it's really easy to see. Um, it's all about sandbagging, about holding items. Um, there's very little strategy, just like raw speed. There's like little events that can sometimes kind of happen, like the trucks or like the fucking biker gangs and stuff, but it's pretty rare in my experience. So what you're getting is not an interesting world to explore that's not reinforced by any kind of like game design or quest system or carrot on a stick in any way really. Despite it being a really nice looking world with a decent amount of interactivity, not too much. And then you're having that get piecemealed and cut into pieces, into strips to be put in between the actual real courses, which you don't get to be on for very long because they generally treat it like kind of a sprint. You don't even do laps sometimes. And if you do, it's like certain pieces of courses. And so you're hurting the core conceit of like the entire fucking like Mario Kart thing, right? Like the laps, the clean gameplay, and all that by introducing this thing that you don't really utilize fully. Um, if it was just like, hey, there's an open world section, kind of like Mario Kart DS, where there's a single player, and you could just ignore it if you wanted, and you can know that the maps, all the courses are on the map somewhere, and you could just drive to them, but like you don't have to. That would be fine, but that they included in the gameplay and they doubled down on it. Um, and they changed all the courses and put like in between intermission essentially courses in between stuff. It just makes for a more boring long thing, and the only way you can do just pure courses is like private lobbies and stuff. And yeah, so it's a good game. I think it feels really good. It looks really good. It sounds really good. I think the idea of like a big world is like cute if utilized properly. Like if it actually was like lots of different routes and crazy places and lots of world interactivity, and you had to kind of like find your way to the other locations, and maybe there's like a bit of randomization or something, like activities and stuff, so that you can't just optimize the fuck out of it. But I mean, that's racing too. That's just part of it. Maybe people will eventually. But maybe there's some kind of inherent intent in the design, or they know the fastest thing, and there's like a skill to it. Yeah. Instead, it's just really dry. So it's a shame. Otherwise, it's pretty good. I think it's a good game. I had fun with it, but yeah, kind of half baked. What is the open world bubble bursting? God, I don't know, bro. It's always been a dream in video games, right? I mean, they tried doing it on the N64, but instead of a giant world, it was like Ocarina of Time or something. JRPGs were always doing it. Do you think they wouldn't have done stuff like this back then? They just probably couldn't. Like that's the scary part. The idea of like recreating your own reality, your own world is always this like pipe dream of like, you know, um what is the phrase? Design creep or whatever, where it's like you just keep adding too much crap and try to make it too big. And I think being able to sit down and say, hey, when is enough enough? What other factors in video games are important, or that hurt by open world, right? Like density and keeping it condensed, and um, pacing and all that kind of stuff. And the thing is, that's just not like is popular, right? Big world, big crazy world is so big, 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 big. Graphics and big. That's always been such a driver. I think you see a little pushback with that nowadays, with like indies, with AAA eating a bit more shit. I mean, obviously there is like an inherent appeal to like open world done right, a sense of exploration, a sense of immersion in a world, right? But yeah, I don't know. I would just as soon as see 90% of these games that push open world just for the sake of it just explode. It's a blight. Some of my favorite games are like open worlds where you just go in directions, but incorporating it for no reason, especially incorporating the Ubisoft style, where it's filled with like mind-numbing surface level tokens and collectathon bullshit, but not in a way of like old collectathons where it was, you know, the level design and like how dense it was and stuff. It wasn't actually a fucking thought, not an afterthought. I think it's just yeah, I don't know. It's a weird experiment in this one. It's just very odd. You're just like, why did this happen? Like, they make this entire world and then it just like there's just nothing really. It feels like a side part of the game, but then it fucks with the main game too. So doesn't really make sense. So kind of odd there. It's like Nintendo just like 20 bazillion years in like a different in some different world when it comes to incorporating stuff like that. Not that I want them to do more open world shit like this, but like where they were like it feels like they're like afraid of it or like the novelty of it was like enough. Um I mean some really good stuff back in the day is incorporates just stuff just to do it, right? Just because it's fun, but um sometimes that's like the entire appeal, right? Like some like old Eurojank or something. It's just mechanics, just random crap, but like that's kind of like part of the entire appeal of the thing. Where this is like Mario Kart's a very defined series that it's got a lot of fans. That's got a very doesn't change a whole lot between them, just little bits and pieces, and is very successful on those fronts. And it's kind of a bigger budget affair. So for them to kind of throw all of this into it and then just kind of have it feel so poorly implemented, just odd for sure. It almost feels like it just got rushed out, but I'm sure it did. Mario Kart's the biggest money maker for them, and I mean I'm sure this still did well. Maybe on fucking open world alone. Anyways, it's still a good game. Not a great game though. It'd probably be a great game with a few fucking patches, but let me change the music. Throat's already hurting. Last night. I think part of it's the cold, but I must have been yawning. I just had a really dry throat or mouth. Not good for the day where I'm gonna talk for fucking like 10 hours straight, but worst case, I just take a. Anyways, Abiotic Factor. This was definitely one of the better things I played this year. Or it'll go into the next round. It is a, I guess if you can't tell, a survival crafting exploration game. Whoa, that sounds horrible. But it's actually awesome. There's some really good survival crafting stuff. It's just there's a lot of survival. It's like open world where like just the name of it alone, the genre, um, is a poison, because there is so many that so mindlessly include all those elements. This, yeah, I'd really recommend it. It's really good. It's really long, mind you, but it's really good. Um, this though is so much kind of like your Subnauticas and stuff, so much more focused on getting you back out there, providing you with really meaningful upgrades and base customization and really fueling adventure and stuff. And having a world that's really worth exploring. It's cool. Think of it kind of as like Half-Life 1 meets a survival crafting thing, where instead of just going to Zen, you go to like a bazillion different worlds. It's got a mix of SCP in there. So you're getting horror, you're getting crazy lore, you're getting goofiness, you're getting all sorts of different tones. Most every upgrade for yourself, your base, feels like meaningful. Sometimes they kind of reinvent the game all of a sudden. You know, I won't spoil, I guess, but you know, just how you move and how you move and do stuff is just super different. And the kinds of enemies you'll run into. I mean, you'll upgrade just gear and stuff like that. Play around with that kind of stuff, and there are little elements of like immersive sim shit, which is cool, but it's mostly just about exploring. It's a lot of just crazy amount of content that's all really interesting. Um, there's a little grindiness to some of the resources you need to get going back into some of these worlds, but usually not too bad. Um, yeah, very immersive. Slow burn, but super immersive. All of the quality of life and creative base mechanics are neat. I do wish the defense based stuff was a little bit more of a deal. You also can play this co-op. It's very customizable difficulty and all that kind of stuff. Generally, I just kind of made a base defense thing, and it just kind of handled it without much issue, or just nothing really would happen. But even then, it's cool kind of setting it up, um, regardless. And there's all sorts of wacky shit. It is a meter manager. Um, it's not too bad on that. The amount of, especially solo, because I mean the food, it's made so that you can feed a lot of people. Being able to do it solo, I mean, maybe you can't do some of the resource gathering, divert it all out as easily, but you can generally make so much food and different kinds of food and all that on your own that, like in most of these games, the meters start to kind of disappear a bit. Um, and you can kind of get a certain amount of like upgrades and quality of life stuff to sort of not have it be as much of a thing. Maybe not as much as in like Subnautica, where I'm going out and I can just like back a fish and it instantly gets cooked, or you know, my submarine has like a fucking like watermelon farm on it. But still a good bit. Yeah, cool stuff. There's vehicles. There's all sorts of crazy shit. The big thing is it's just like the soul level, the secret level, just the amount of stuff. You're just like, there's just not much like it. That's you know, in a lot of games you'd get like a couple of these worlds and that would be it. This game has like dozens of these things and they're all really interesting and thought out and fun. And I mean, it's probably one of those where it's kind of like an early access success type of thing where you can kind of see where they probably just kept adding, kept refining, kept retooling shit. And you could kind of feel that in a way that sometimes like just a normal full release might not have it unless it's like a extremely big budget polished affair. Um, so it's cool. I hope they do more. There is a little DLC for it I didn't pick up. It's mostly just a new location for you to build if you want. It's like a more of a supporter pack. It's like a little like a Japanese shrine temple thing. But yeah. Cool stuff. Would recommend it with friends. Would recommend it solo. It's a different feel. You're probably gonna listen to the lore and really soak in a little bit more of the darker kind of horror atmospheres at time. But like I said, it's all over the place. That's not a spooky game, but it does all sorts of shit. Must play game for sure. It's one of those. One of the best I played this year. One of the best survival crafting games I've ever played. It's really fucking long. I can't say that enough. I played this for like, I think, a few weeks, but it was good. It's on Game Pass. Just want to run through it. But Wheel World. I was shocked when I found out Johnny Jewel did the soundtrack for this. Not like the Johnny Jewel stuff I like, mind you, but yeah. So this is like a chill little game about just biking. It's an open world as well. Um, being more of a vehicle thing and not being like an overly massive, goofy open world helps it a bit on that front. A little bit more depth. It's not like raw arcadey bike racing. There's a lot of like vehicle customization and little tricks of the movement and stuff. But for the most part, you're doing a set few kinds of modes and exploring just a little bit on your quest to kind of get all the legendary bark pieces, and save this like world. Everything's named and geared around bike racing and stuff. It's got a pretty typical like anti-corporate kind of story. Not that I don't disagree with anything, but it's pretty typical any kind of story on that front. Making the world shitty, fuck 'em, save world kind of thing. And everybody is very, super uppity and wholesome and quirky about, bike riding and stuff like that. But, yeah, I would say, God, why does it do this? Like, it just freezes and then the trailer keeps going. It's like Firefox is just a piece of shit, dude. It's like I loop it and it's just like, what? But, I wish they would actually upgrade their fucking browser, man. It's so lame that Chrome is like the best at most things when it's fucking Google and they got their fucking ad blockers banned and shit. Like, I like Firefox because that stuff's not there, but like, I have to use Chrome for my Twitch chat now. Like, I'm trying to do like videos with Firefox and it just doesn't even like, it's just freezing on a frame. I have hardware acceleration on. If I alt tab and I'm like on another window, the videos start to like slowly move at lower and lower frames to the point where I have to like refresh the whole thing. And it's just like, come on, man. Like, at least give me a fucking good reason. Not just because fucking Google shoots themselves in the foot, like, goddamn, man. Anyways, yeah. Wheel World, it was fine. I wasn't super into it. I think it gets a little repetitive. There's enough nuances to the gameplay where the difficulty once it ramps up can feel pretty good, but by that point you're also kind of just tired with it. It's not a super short game for what it looks like. There's a lot of side modes, a lot of little things to find. I think if you just like the general bike riding kind of vibe, um, I wouldn't call it serene. I think Johnny Jewel's music fits in this, but it isn't like an atmospheric kind of rolling around thing. It's not like Lonely Mountains Snow Riders or Lonely Mountains Downhill, where it's like raw, like environmental sounds, and it's all about just kind of the serene kind of you performing on these difficult tracks. It's kind of going for a little something else, but it's still cool to just chill and go like hit up all the locations and stuff. It is, while there is secrets to find and stuff, it is checklisty. It is kind of Ubisoft-ish, you know. you need to get to the boss in the zone, so you have to clear like an X amount of like races and stuff. Luckily, because it's just kind of fine enough just to drive around and it doesn't like overstay its welcome too much, minute to minute. It does by the end, but like, it's not that annoying to like get to places. It's about riding a bike. I don't mind those Ubisoft elements too much, but yeah, not super great. I didn't come out from it like really in love with it. I think the story and the humor and all that is definitely not really like a big plus. Um, well, it feels cool enough to play. I don't know if there's enough depth there or variety of activities or really a whole lot going on in the world to really keep me jacked in. But I think if you're a really big bike person, maybe it could be a little different for you. It's cool. I don't think it's like bad, but I won't throw it any higher. Pity part of me kind of just did this one at random. I think this might have been Game Pass as well. Um, Little puzzle game. I wouldn't call it a limbo like, but it's closer to that than it isn't. Um, there's probably a little bit more puzzly stuff in this than your average cinematic platformer these days. It's about a girl who's got issues and she talks to her shadow, who is their own character. So it's about you messing with light and moving the shadow to manipulate the world while she manipulates the other part of the world. And the story is kind of, I won't say up its own ass. It's one of those that's trying to tell like a deep story about certain mental issues and depression and all this kind of stuff. Maybe not those exact themes. I honestly don't remember the exact nature of what's going on. I think her chiming in a lot with some of that, where it feels like it's appealing to your emotions on a more surface kind of level way that some indie games do, or some just games in general do. When it comes to those problems, but not really. I feel like exploring them in like a way that I find terribly evocative or um, touching is kind of a problem with it. Um, Overall, the soundtrack was excellent. It was probably the biggest plus, but the story kind of. I mean, it's not fucked, but he talks a lot. He's kind of whiny and annoying. I don't think the voice acting is terribly good. I appreciate what they're kind of trying to go for, but it's definitely not something you haven't seen before, and it's not done in like the best way. As far as gameplay goes, though, it's a cute idea. It's definitely more of like a speed puzzle thing for me, where it's like you don't really have to think too hard on these, but the fun kind of like, hey, how quickly can I figure some of this out? There's a lot of like little indie games that are like simple semi 2D things with like a one little gimmick on the puzzle deal, and the difficulty is about the same, and hard to describe that. They've got the 2D action puzzle platformer with like its one little quirk kind of thing, and then this one, I think it's a cute quirk. It's it's well enough realized visually. It's cute doing it. It's not crazy. The platforming's not wild. Like I said, the puzzles, they mix up stuff often enough, but it's not. You're not going to be thinking about it. Any of the puzzles individually. Well past what a few hours after your playthrough. Um, Rambling a bit there, but yeah. Overall, I mean, I definitely would say check out the soundtrack. Really good. The rest of it's clean. Like if you're just looking for a puzzle platformer, with you want one of those, just like with a little gimmick. I think it's cool for that. Um, I think if you're wanting to have like some of your cinematic platformers have like a bit more of a touching story, I think it's trying to. I appreciate the intent, but I don't think it really hits home. all for me. And I do think it cuts into like what it does well enough, and what it does well enough, and it doesn't do that well for it to be really something I'd consider like a really good game. So, it's not bad. I could respect somebody saying it's better than I gave it. So what the fuck, Goat Sims here. Right. Goat Simulator. I could not find just like a good trailer for some reason of just people doing shit. So it's my own gameplay. Here's a few of these. Let's go Simulator 1. Could be, right? Yeah. Goat Simulator 3 is all like one world. Yeah, this is Goat Simulator. This is a kind of a really influential game, I guess you'd say. One sec, this music's a little too loud. Maybe Vol isn't the best choice. Yeah, Goat Simulator is a kind of, I mean, it was made as kind of like a joke in the first place, but kind of a shitpost, wacky physics, mischief kind of game. Obviously, this spawned a bunch of crap like all your goose games and your kill it with fires and your cat fucking exploration, mischief games and stuff like that. What's up, Lassie? So it's just like kind of a goofy sandbox thing. It's kind of for the time sort of funny. To fool around with the physics and just you being like an animal. It's been done quite a bit nowadays, and to a greater effect, I would say. Um, it's very irreverent, kind of joke references and stuff. A lot of like the DLC is like Star Wars or MMO based or stuff like that. There are like missions, kind of think like Tony Hawk, where you have to get a certain amount of points or do certain weird tricks or fuck around, and they're generally like a little too much for what they are, and kind of annoying. There's also not really a whole lot of unique things that happen in this. I will say just right off the bat, I think this game is dog shit. I think it's super shit, and I do not like it much at all. And I mean, I'm all for whimsical bullshit. I think there's just so little driving everything going on. It's pretty much just the raw goofiness of like what's happening. And I feel like there's so many ways you could experience that kind of thing, either through just like normal games glitching out or something much shorter that like actually, just plays into that shitposty stuff. But it just kind of gives you this sandbox and just expects you to be interested in pretty much doing the exact same shit with a slightly different coat of paint for like 10 bazillion hours. And some people would. I think there's a lot of young audience. There was, especially when this game came out, when it was just like the absurdity of it was like more novel. That was really cool, probably. But as far as like actually kind of giving you a more unique world with actual stuff going on that utilizes the shitposty destruction physics stuff in a way that feels like it meant to have some effort into it and wasn't just kind of incidental. Yeah, it's just, which funny enough, Goat Simulator 3 I think is a good game. And it does go for all that. It's essentially all the fucking complaints I have with this game. They actually try to make like a fucking game around the idea of it with 3, and it's just much more interesting. A lot of like this, like the payday stuff in this and the MMO stuff, it's just really mindless and boring and just uninteresting. It's, if like the little punchlines don't get you, there's really nothing else there. It's pretty much always just the same shit. Like, hey, you get a superpower that like sucks objects in. Like, oh, that's kind of cute, right? And like, otherwise, it's just like it's the same shit. Or maybe it spawns a goat, and it's like, okay, you know, like you can break stuff in like a building, but that's really as far as it goes, right? There's a lot of destruction games. There's a lot of games with like experimental physics shit, right? and actually try to put like something with more significance behind it. So yeah, it's one of those where it's like we kind of talked about at the time, where it's like, it's kind of hard to like really sit here and like lay into like Goat Simulator too much. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just trying to be like a goofy little shitpost thing. But that's all I really can read it as. Also, um, I think if you just want something just to fool around with, and you've never seen a game where you're a cute little critter with a bunch of like jokes about like pop culture, then I mean, here you go. Cool for that, I guess. But yeah, overall, I think it's dog shit. As just something to play. If you play a lot of stuff, I didn't like it. I thought it was insanely boring after like an hour or two. And I mean, maybe that's all you need out of it, but there's a lot in there. I did not do every little thing. I think out of all of this stuff, I tried some Payday. I tried some Goat Z. I did most of the MMO one. I mean, I guess I tried everything a bit. Um, but man, yeah. American McGee's. Where's Hurdley? Only that. I don't know why these are all so out of order. Yeah, what's that, buddy? Goatsy. What's goats? Internet shock site. Oh, was it that picture of the inside of that guy's asshole? Is that what that was called? I know that picture. But I didn't know the name. I would say Goatsy. At least that was more successful at being like a some unhinged shitpost that would surprise people occasionally. I don't think that ever got old because you don't have to sit with it for that long. I mean, you don't have to sit with Goat Simulator that long. It's a quick blast of bullshit. And it's over. Now, Goat Sim 3 is better than Goat Sim, I'd say. It was never my favorite meme, but it checks out. Speaking of goats that are not goats, you've got your buffalo goat things and herdling. This is your 3D kind of walking sim sort of game. Like your journey is you know, um, supposed to be evocative or melancholic kind of wandering game where you're trying to reach a central location, and it's usually tall. Like all of your journey likes through it. So they need to have like its own fucking like name. But there's like 10 bazillion of these. I did also Keeper this year, which was similar. Um, I think, and I mean, I play them for a reason. I still like them, the right mix of visuals and audio and stuff, and maybe the actual feel of the game, and it would be a plus. Not all of them feel very good or very interesting, but usually they're very wordless games, not much events, tolds, or much lore. It's all kind of just diegetic right there. Um, overall, I think I had fun with this one. I don't think it's a crazy good game. I'd probably put it as just like maybe a good game. Um, what it is you are like, you know, some kid in the city. The city sucks. There's some of these herdlings, these buffalo guys or whatever show up, and you get a little staff, and you can start herding them, and well, you're herding them to the big central area. You know? um, I think it does. Yeah, you can name them, which is fun. So I'd call some of them Bilbo Baggins and shit like that. Um, you can give them little accessories, which is kind of fun. You can feed them and like kind of clean them up. They don't have like that much individual personality or fooling around. They do have the ability to die. You do collect more, and you kind of just generally herd them around and do little puzzles with them here and there, or like stealth past a few too many bird sections. But when the game's at its best, it's when the camera's extremely wide, when it's showing a huge vista, and you are just hauling ass, and the music's hitting, and you're just with the herd, and you're just rolling, and they're rolling, and um, that's I'd say about half the game. They assume they know that's the best parts, but you can't just have that, I guess. When it slows down and it's more worried about like puzzles or stealth, that's when it's more shitty. But even those elements aren't bad. But yeah, a lot of really cool kind of like I don't know what you call it, probably northern European kind of like plains, like an Icelandic kind of thing going on. I mean, I'm not that well traveled, so it'd be hard to say, but um, looks really nice. Um, and if you're in the mood for yeah, steps, there you go. If you're in the mood for kind of like a more serene, chill, um, good feel sort of kind of game like that. You know, it's no journey or anything. It's got its ups and its downs, but you know what you're getting into. When I call it like a journey, like if you're in the mood for that, I think it's a solid one there. I don't think it has that much to say. I don't think there's a whole lot going on, but hey, it's cute animals being cute. At least it's not a fucking another dog or cat, which are awesome, mind you. But like, you know, who's gonna start paying these dogs and cats for selling their fucking games? Okay, they are the selling point 90% of the time when they're included. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's a cool little thing. I think it does a kind of cinematic kind of journey kind of thing, like an actual journey. Not, I mean, also like journey thing well enough. There's not much else to say. There's not much else going on in it. Like I said, there's little things to explore. I would say the less you explore, the better. Keeping up the pace, keeping your dudes moving. You know, it has like the typical structure of one of these, where it's like things are kind of iffy at the beginning, and then you have your good times, and then you have the worst time, and then you have the hardest times, but it's the most uplifting, and then you reach the place, and they're always like this. Yeah, I swear to God, they're all copied from the same template. I mean, I guess that's like kind of a typical story act structure, right? You know, here the low point before the big point, but since these are always so bare bones, so not bare bones in a bad way, but like they remove all that extra fluff usually. Like it's just there is like a repetition of these. I think if you don't play a lot of these games, you would not really care about that. But I'll play a few of these a year, and they kind of pull from the same book. So if you're kind of tired of that, your journey type of stuff, maybe not. But like if you're actually wanting something where you have to like think really hard about like hurting animals, it's not that crazy, which I thought was a good thing. 'Cause I don't want to be like annoyed by sitting there fucking hurting animals. Anyways, couldn't find a good fucking trailer for this one either. Herding. Herded. Herd. Herring. Some herring, some fish. But yeah. So there's not really like good like attract mode type of trailers for this. Probably because it was like a PC game originally and probably not really like a big hit one. Herding animals. Yeah. It probably does. Herding animals will slow it down in the future. Luckily I won't be saying that much going forward from here in my life. But yeah, American McGee's Alice is a is it a unique property or was it originally like a comic? But American McGee was like somebody who worked on Doom or something like that. I worked at it in some capacity. His actual name. And they made a game on PC called Alice, where it's kind of like a dark, more fucked up horror, kind of like, you know, Alice in Wonderland. Supposed to be like a sequel later. She's kind of lost her mind, and Wonderland with it. It's like a This one's like a third person shooter mixed with some platforming. Um, yeah, the gameplay in this sucks. I don't think it's very good on that front, but you're not really getting into it for that. It would just be nice if it was better. It's pretty much like nonstop action. The shooting's not the best. There's some cute weapons for sure that they experiment with, but so I like that about it. You're like throwing the knife or bouncing stuff. Or I think this one has throwing tacks and shit. But it gets old. There's too many fights and too many areas. But overall, you're really in it for the look of the game and the feel and the atmosphere, which I think is pretty impeccable through most of it. Kind of these weird gore, horror, oddball takes on Alice in Wonderland are sort of fun. Um, like I said, I think the gameplay kind of hurts in this one, but I think it's worth checking out at least, maybe just watching it to kind of see some of the art design realized and all that stuff. Skip around a little bit. The first one's very abstract. You do not feel like there's like a sense of place. It's usually like, yeah, you can kind of see here like the infinite cosmos out every door with like giant freak objects floating around. So it's very dreamy and out there in the first one, which I really liked. Although I do think Madness Returns art style is also very good, but just in a different way. So that coupled with kind of like your more PS2 era-ish sort of graphics, right? I mean, this was a PC release, but creates I feel like a cool surreal atmosphere, cool abstract, surreal kind of dark atmosphere. If you have any interest in like Alice in Wonderland in general, I mean, I would recommend reading that or like watching something about it first. You'd have to kind of be under a rock, I guess, to not know anything about Alice in Wonderland, but because it does play off of like those conventions and characters and stuff. Seeing them fucked up is kind of part of the appeal. But yeah, it's cool. It's a lengthy enough game. It isn't just like 2000s edgy to be 2000s edgy, like a Jack 2 or something. I think there's enough artistry here to justify it beyond just being of the times. But yeah, I think it's a little rough to play. Pretty repetitive, pretty imprecise. Doesn't feel really great to jump around or anything, but it's still fun enough. I didn't come across, I didn't come out afterwards like really annoyed by it in like a big way. I don't think about it in that way. The positives have kind of stayed with me more than the negatives, but yeah. I would put it down as a good game, but with some caveats. There's Goat Sim 3. Yeah. I went into Goat Sim 3 expecting the worst. I was like, wow, dude. I am a no fun Scrooge McFucking Duck asshole out here railing on Goat Simulator 1. But I'm like, I'm gonna try Goat Sim 3 anyways. I thought it was pretty awesome. Goat Sim 3 was actually what I wanted out of Goat Sim 1. It's not just about sandboxing. It's about actually developed quests and locations and events with more like, fully featured gameplay. Would you say it was the GOAT? Out of the two Goat Sim games? Yeah, it is the GOAT. The GOAT of games. Literally and figuratively. I think it still has its shitpostiness, but I think it actually attempts to write real jokes in situations that are like unironically funny, or at least will give you a smile. To go with the sandboxy, shitposty stuff. It gets rid of like there's references and stuff, but it gets rid of just having it be this episodic, um, little exploration thing of like micro zones and makes it all just one big open world. I think it's to the benefit in this. Because it means you'll find more secrets, learn the lay of the land, find little shit. Yeah, I heard they're bringing rants. What are they going to be like? Completely, like 90% of it's going to be removed. Just going to be the gameplay. I would love to do a rant series playthrough, but it'd have to be Discord. I can't get rid of the porn, man. I mean, I could. It could be funny to play PG rants. I might as well just play Fire Emblem. I wonder if those will get banned. I'm wondering if Grand Blue Fantasy is going to get banned before it comes out. Brown Dust 2 got banned before it got released on Steam. I think there was another gacha that did recently too. And then obviously a bunch of VNs and anime games. I got the anti-anime crew checking these games. So, oh, it was a Blue Archive, right? It also got banned. I wonder if GBF will make it. I think not being able to link your account to the Steam version of GBF already kind of makes it pointless. But what's up, Goto? Thank you. Yeah, I'm curious if France will even make it, since the series has a track record with a particular brand of porn. Yeah, Goat Simulator 3, it's just cool. It's just more creative. The gameplay and mechanics are more developed. It doesn't lose its shitposty charm, but it actually creates a game around it instead of it just being essentially like a tech joke demo thing that got big, so they wanted to throw some more content into it, which I totally get. But this is them actually trying to make like a game, with Goat Simulator, and it's good. I thought it was a good time. I actually enjoyed it. I pretty much did everything in it. Crazy to hate the first one so much and then go into the second one and be like, what the fuck? I actually like this, right? Maybe it's just like, it's not like it's a particular just brand of comedy either. I mean, it's still goofy shitpost, but I guess there's just like an amount of like effort and level to the sandboxy shit in the first one that it just wasn't enough for me. Just if it doesn't hit off the bat for you, that there's nothing else to it. So. Goat Sim 3, you can have, parts that don't hit because there's so much different variety and stuff. Yeah. Thought it was good, man. Icon. Game was alright. It's just a very bare bones, just Metroidvania. More in lines with Metroid itself than anything. Not much frizzles, not much bullshit. There's like a little story going on. It's not too long. If you're looking just to play like a Metroidvania, but more in the space station, lonely space station kind of Metroid sort of atmosphere. It's worth giving a go. I didn't think it was like really good, but I didn't think there's like a whole lot of dog shit either. Like it was cute enough to just get everything in and just play through. The power fantasy's all right. Most of the upgrade types are about what you'd expect. It's not really trying to reinvent the wheel too much. I don't really remember what unique mechanics it even really has. I mean, it has a few little slightly different. Like instead of like a shine spark or something, you're getting like the ability to like run on water. It essentially works the same way, where you gotta run really quick and build up your super speed, and instead of running fast through walls, you're just walking on water. That's kind of the general mix up on it, but I think it's cool. Play it if you're in the mood for, you're a big Metroidvania person and you've gone through a lot of them. Give it a go. I don't think I was in love with it, but it was worth playing. Not gonna put it any higher than that. We did Malice Adness Returns. Also by American McGee. This is done by his Chinese studio. I think they just said a Spicy Horse or something. Published by EA. It's always fucked. Like they own it and everything. I don't think they're making that third one, but so this one leans a little bit more. I mean, this one's a sequel, I guess, but it leans a little bit more into Alice completely off her rocker, to the point where they actually show her in like this kind of fucked up like England or kind of grungy real world, and then they kind of juxtapose it against like all of these kind of more creative stages in Alice. They get a little bit more crazy with this in terms of like where the kinds of places you'll go to. I the first one was very abstract and like dreamy. A sense of like actual place there really wasn't. It was mostly just like bizarro rooms kind of just stitched together, and it was cool for that. This is more like you are going to the, it's crazy, but like you're going to like Japan. It's like they're wearing like yukatas and just swords, and it's like it's an actual like location, and you can see most of it, and you'll just kind of explore it. It's much more linear in that extent. You go to a lot of different areas. The art style is really good. There's some really great vistas in this game. The water area and stuff. They're cool. I think Japanese McGee said, "Oh." That's pretty much what it is. I mean, it's just like it's just randomly there. But yeah. So this one reworks the combat. It's a little less of a shooter. It's a bit more of a hybrid like action game. They downplay the platforming a little bit too. I'd say overall it's pretty split evenly between melee action, a bit of shooting, and 3D platforming. As far as like how those gameplay elements are, not very good. Once again, it's kind of the one of the detractors in the game. Very linear in the sense, in a 360 era way. It's very like the Jude Bro shooter, going down hallways with like a couple little branches for side stuff here and there. If you've played a lot of 360 era PS3 like shooter campaigns, or just any kind of fucking like somewhat big budget game back then, you know what I'm talking about. It pretty much takes from that style, just verbatim. There's not much you have to do to figure out what's going on or to pathfind. It's you just kind of going through sort of a theme park of stuff, which can be really good given the right amount of like content and variety. I think this game falls apart by the end on that front really bad. You're really done with it, and then it just never ends. I can't remember. I think there might have been troubles in development or something like that, but the final area just never stops. Keeps going. Story gets even shittier. It's real. So yeah, I think overall I still like it. I really like parts of it maybe more than like the whole package. Um, I almost want to just put these on notable, not like good, but yeah, maybe I will do that. I don't know. I don't think they're like bad though. They're at the bottom of good, man. They're like barely there for me. I'll mention the art stuff. These are like barely in the good category for me. I think the gameplay is not so bad that like it's not worth it at all. That the art style can't be appreciated in any way. But I would say overall, I'd probably say just get a watch on them before I get a play on them. Like I said, this one's a very creative and abstract in a different way. It's not as like you know surreal, dreamy. It's more just like crazy, um, specific areas and stuff. But it's for outfits, the art is the best of the two by a long shot. It's really good on that front, but yeah, the combat, the amount of it, how much all that gets in the way, it's hard to. And then just how fucking sluggish the last level is for being one of the shittier ones visually, anyways. It's hard to get past a lot of that. If you play like if you've played a lot of stuff of this generation, the formula, the hallway dude bro shooter formula, you're already super tired of it, right? And it is not doing anything different there. So let me see this. I feel like I've probably seen this before. It sounds familiar. No, she is Alice. First Japanese video game adaptation of Alice in Wonderland. What the? Alice in Wonderland, Japan. Whoa. Japanese McGee. If this is any good. Ratings back then seemed to think it was a mix. But yeah, so Alice, the series in general, I think it's worth taking a peek at. I think if you have a tolerance for rough third person shooters or rough action games, I think there's art here. If it catches your eye, it's worth taking a peek. You can I think the first one's pretty much abandonware. Technically, I think you can play it through Alice Madness Returns with old copies. Um, I don't know if it's available properly anymore. If you have Game Pass, you can play Madness Returns. I think it's also pretty cheap on some places. You're gonna have little issues running these. It's not the worst ever, but yeah, because it's generally more PC centric affair and it's old PC. You might have some stuff going on. I had to do some patching, but there's a community for it. These are cult classics in in the very essence of the phrase. So um, they're neat. Um, I feel like they could have been godly, but yeah, it's kind of like nowadays some certain indies and stuff. Not just I shouldn't just say indies, but yeah, or the artists. are making a game and the game part's not really that good, but you're there for the art. So I don't think the stories in either are very good either. I mean, some of the dialogue in the situations are pretty cool, but more just in how they like play off of the original Alice in Wonderland more than it really is like that. So we'll continue. Donkey Kong Bonanza. This one's been hyped up as one of the better games this year. I like Donkey Kong. I like the Mario Odyssey devs. This has both of those in it. I like 3D platformers, especially if they try to be a little ballsier here. And I think this also is doing all that. Donkey the Kong. Yeah. Yeah, so what this is it's a destruction sandbox 3D platformer. Donkey Kong in this, you can punch through any part of the environment generally. I mean, there's certain things you can't, but I mean, that's mostly the goals. You flying through these environments, collecting all sorts of crap, doing different objectives, and you can just kind of like carve through most of the objects. You get a lot of different mechanics over time that let you kind of just break the game, literally and figuratively, like the objectives. And so it's sort of sandboxy there. How much platforming is there? I mean, if we're comparing it to like a 3D world, pretty much none. If we're comparing it to like Odyssey, I would say quite a bit less. It's much less of a platformer. There is move tech. There is like challenges. You are jumping and thinking about moving with all of your destruction and stuff. It's not just carving through the earth. But yeah, if you're like a big 3D platformer person and you're looking to be kind of serviced in that way, not so much. I ended up thinking this was creative, generally good, but I'm actually not super huge on this one, which kind of was surprising for me. I was pretty done with it by the end of it. I might be in the minority on that. It is very one note. It is so sandboxy, but not to the level of depth I would have liked, like in the like how the mechanics work in the world, that it ends up being kind of just mindless. Like you just kind of fly over everything, you skip over everything. You're just kind of can carve through the land as much as you want. There are like setup challenges. They're not super interesting, but like, you know, they're few and far between enough. The art style's like neat, all that kind of stuff. There is charm there, but I think the idea of the game kind of ran its course pretty early for me, and then you're kind of going through a lot of motions on that front. Um, I kind of would have been cool if like it had like a physics thing going on. I think there are like creative items in it and stuff, but um, what's up, Maury? Generally, though, it's like those like you. There's like physics, I guess, but like if you like cut a tree down, the top half of the tree stays. So going into this, you might expect there to be like physics where things are falling over, and you're gonna create like pathways through it or like weird jumps or something, and they're gonna mix all that in there, and it does reinvent itself a little bit depending on your power ups and stuff, but it's fun. There's like a power trip to just breaking through stuff for a while, but for me, I think it kind of ran its course after a bit, and then you're kind of left with um, a sandbox that's pretty easy to like trivialize with challenges that aren't really all that interesting. Um, it's a good time still, but I ended up having more problems with it by the end of it than I would have liked. I don't think it stacks up to like Odyssey or anything. Well, yeah, that was one thing too. The elephant, you just suction. Yeah, and it's hard to blame it too much for like, you know, the sandbox being kind of wonky. Um, but kind of like we were talking about, like Ghost Sim a bit. It's like, it's cute. You can just kind of fuck around, but like once each of those things has run its course, I don't think they do an amazing job at like creating situations for you to use each individual mechanic in like a fun, like fleshed out way. There's like challenge stuff at the very end that kind of goes for some of that a bit. Um, but for the most part, um, ah, I just don't think it quite gets there. You'd probably have to revert if you really don't hear my dumb ass talking a lot back to the VODs to get more on it, but yeah, I think visually it's cool. It's got a lot of reference to like Donkey Kong Country and shit, and the old ones. I think the final boss and everything is really cool. It's nice to see that it isn't just like throwing the old Donkey Kong stuff in the shitter. Um, it is a charming game. It's got a neat little art style. It's very colorful. Um, I think, I guess Pauline and stuff is like fine, maybe a little annoying. I didn't hate it too much. I don't think too much about it, but yeah. It's not like the first destruction game I've ever played to. There's your old mercenaries, your just cause games, your red factions and stuff. Obviously, this is much more polished and more thought out, but like with those kinds of things, treating them as just like a sandbox only goes so far, depending on how much like emergent mechanics and stuff there are. And I don't think this has like enough there. So. Still really cool. I absolutely recommend people play it and try it out. It's really neat. I'm probably in the minority where I'm not like in love with it, but it's still cool. Yeah. But anyways, I guess we'll move on to the next one. Bowser's a submarine. Dude, Bowser, he's rich, man. He's well funded. He's got his own nuclear submarine. He's got his flying cop in the old games. He's got his own army, his own castle. Yeah. Well, Princess Peach has a yacht in Mario Kart. She's got a flying fortress. Yeah. The only thing you can't get is a girlfriend, I guess. He has to steal those. But yeah, definitely recommend Donkey Kong Bonanza. I think everybody should give it a try. Depending on how you feel on certain things, it'll probably go a different distance for you, but it is a good game. So. Yeah, Tales from Candleforth. This one is kind of like a folk horror sort of point and click puzzle thing. Yeah, but he totally doesn't do that to the toads. He just steals Princess Peach and then just has his troops just sit around, I guess. What do they actually do anything really, right? They just kind of hang out, you know? I've never seen like a Goomba like eating a toad or some shit, you know? They're kind of there. That's how Bowser doesn't end up. That's why he's like a good guy in half the games, right? He never really does anything bad. But yeah, anyways, Tales from Candleforth. This was neat. It wasn't amazing, but I feel like the folk horror kind of thing going on. It's not too long. Um, Generally the like point and click exploration elements. There's not too many locations you go to, but there's like enough. Some tricky little puzzles, but not anything crazy if you've played a fair amount of these types of games. It doesn't really go a whole lot of places story wise. There's some twists. Um, it's definitely more about the atmosphere and stuff. it kind of leaves off for some more shit. It's clearly supposed to be like a bunch of like games. I think I'd you want to play some more of them. I think if you're in the mood for this particular atmosphere, it's good for that. I think just as a general recommendation, as like a point and click or like a puzzle game, it's super crazy. I don't really have like a lot of big memories about big problems on it or anything. I mean, this was a while ago now, um, but overall, I mean, it's a cute little thing. I don't think it really is punching above its weight in pretty much anything other than the style of art it's going for. But I don't have much else to say on it. It's been a little bit. It's not been that long, but it's been a little. Yeah. Next up, After Dream. This was made by the Distraint creator. I think he's Finnish creator. Relatively solo game dev, I think. I played Distraint 1. Wasn't too big on it. But I wanted to try this out. Like the cover art. I want to try another one of his games. I didn't play Distraint 2 yet. I don't know. I this one still didn't click for me. Um, there's some cool art moments here. Overall, though, I feel like the story is kind of a little too blunt force, a little too focused. A lot of the gameplay, the 2D it's kind of more of like a walking through doors type of 2D horror. If you know, you know. I guess kind of, or instead of kind of going through like a big area, it's you having to kind of like mentally map like a house through like a shitload of hallways with like bazillions of doors, and that's how Distraint was as well. It ends up being kind of just more annoying than what fuck around with. I feel like the horror elements are pretty whatever. It is like a dreamy kind of game that's trying to hit you with like some elements of like symbolism and family themes and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know. I just came away with it not feeling a whole lot on it. I can't honestly. I wasn't like a big fan. I feel like it'd be kind of mean to put this in like a worst category. Like there's definitely like enough kind of intense. Uh, it's genuine enough for trying to like kind of tell you a cool little story, and there is some occasional nice thing of art, but I just find it very dull to like explore the story. Like I said, is a little too blunt force for what it's doing, and for how much dialogue there is. The tonal whiplash. It's trying to be kind of this off kilter sort of wacky thing sometimes, quirky, funny, but then it's also trying to be like really horrific. And there's stuff that can balance that kind of thing well, like a Twin Peaks or something. Um, or like coming up, I kind of thought, what was it called? Burnhouse Lane did that pretty well. This one just didn't quite hit for me on it. I think his style of like exploration too is just kind of. There's another one this dev has made that I think looks really cool. I want to play it. So I'm not giving in yet. I still want to find one by this dev I really like. It's called and maybe people would disagree generally. People seem to really like stuff on Steam, but yeah, this one I really like the art style in this one called Without a Dawn. Um, this one looks more just like it's more visual novel ish. It's got a different art style instead of kind of like the big head 2D thing. Um, just generally, no specifics, no biting, no biting commentary, no criticisms of my criticism. No specifica. But yeah, so I don't know. Just on principle, the principle of the thing. I just disagree. Yeah, I guess when I say general, I mean as a maybe as a whole, people would disagree with me on this one, but I think there's a lot of cool horror symbolic, you know, dream world stuff out there. I can appreciate the small dev element on this, but I'm not gonna put it as like a worst. I don't like despise the thing, but I didn't come across. Not even specific to this game. You just disagree in general. Are you a hate watcher then? Would you say a a principled watcher who disagrees on principle? I agreed with you. God. Accusing you of being principled? I apologize. We wouldn't want that. We don't want principled people here. But yeah, next up, Hollow Knight Silk Song. The game nobody's heard of. Super niche. Super unknown. Wouldn't even call it a cult classic. Yeah. So, I mean, it doesn't need a whole lot of introduction. It's a Metroidvania sequel to Hollow Knight. Focused a little bit more heavily on difficulty and combat. Not that there's not a lot of secrets and a lot of exploration, but that's a big part of what people are gonna remember is that stuff. Yeah, I thought this was an excellent game. We'll talk about when you can. Yeah, my agreement levels are a prerequisite. Yeah, I thought this was awesome. Really good game. Crazy amount of stuff in it. All really high quality. I liked that they kind of expected you to have played the first one. It's a little harder, not prohibitively hard. It's got a little bit more mechanical depth, a little bit more customization. That means there's more room for you to trash stuff pretty easily or maybe flounder a bit. It's open, um, unlike like an actual Metroid game or something, which tends to be a bit more linear with the option to go back and explore for side stuff. This is truly more open. You can get to a lot of later areas early and vice versa. I came to some early stuff later just because, yeah. Good looking game, good sounding game. Just the amount of stuff here because of how successful the first one is and how passionate the devs are for the price, especially. I try not to talk about price too much, but yeah, just wild. I missed a lot of stuff. Can't find the memory lockets. Yeah, I ended up getting the 100%, but there might have been a couple things. I'm trying to remember. I mean, there's some stuff to help you. I think I might have had a couple things where I asked people. There's a lot of secrets. Yeah, a lot of places. Like the first game, big side zones. Even the a massive chunk of this game is essentially like a secret. You think you're done, you're not even close kind of game. It's really cool for that. Great bosses. One of the things maybe I guess if I have a negative was I didn't really care for the crest system all that much and some of the side weapons. Um, I would have preferred even more customization instead of kind of being locked in. It sort of sucks to not like, oh, I like a certain move style, but that means I just can't use like sub weapons really. Or, hey, I get all these charms, but because I like this type of weapon, I'm not allowed to like play with the back end of charms at all. Like I can equip like one or something. I'm like, that kind of sucks. I honestly prefer because you can just bust this game open. So many of these crests are busted, like the engineer one. Um, I would have just preferred a more open, like you just pick what you want. You can equip a certain amount of, um, you know, charms, a certain amount of sub weapons. I think there's like specific ones that maybe it can have exceptions, like the engineer, stuff like that. But there was times where I was like, it would just be kind of be more fun if I just could have more of this kit. Like I would really like to be able to have the kick move from like the base mechanic, as an option on any of them, but each of them kind of has their own little kick thing. Obviously, some of them are just like way easier to use for platforming, but some are way more fun for fighting. I know they don't want to make it too complicated, but that would have been fine too. Like maybe you could just pick which move you like out of certain things. Like maybe the normal attacks are the same, but like your down kick is like customizable. I feel like that was a limitation that never really felt like it was interesting to choose as much as it was kind of just uh, me missing out on more depth and kind of wacky, fun gameplay. Disagree specifically now about not liking crests. I think the idea of crests could be fine. I just don't care for how they're balanced. I feel like they care too much about trying to balance stuff, and it kind of balances the fun out of some shit. This trailer's super fucking spoily. What is this trailer? The launch trailer or something? Release trailer. Yeah, it probably is. It shows every single boss. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons I don't like watching a lot of trailers post finding out about like a game's actual gameplay. Or at least I'm not rewatching them a lot. Not to remember them, but I'm glad I didn't watch it. Yeah, you get some of the final sequences in this. Probably. Just try not to put stuff to memory. This is a late area. This is like, I don't know if that was the finale. That might have actually been in a side zone. That boss was pretty early. This can be later, although I've done it pretty early. That's pretty late. Yeah. Lava Room Secret. Yeah, there's like a late thing that's similar, but yeah, that one I think was the secret. That was a difficult little thing. Yeah, just a really good feeling game. Like the combat's really crisp, the jumping feels really good, the upgrades you get are nice. There's a little bit of walking around. It's not like quality of life to the point where it's like, you just warp to the front of every boss. Um, but I'm spoiled. I've been spoiled. Someone, anyone. But yeah, it's one of those things where you sound like you're pretty much at the end. Let me know how you like it. Which act were you in again? This game was all about acts, right? Boing 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 boing. But yeah, just one of those really polished games. Just a crazy amount of stuff in it. Um, psycho amount of good feel in the gameplay. Pretty much no bullshit. Refractory. I'm going to try to find everything I missed. Oh, gotcha. I think you can still go back and find those afterwards. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't think anything's missable until the end of the game. I mean, obviously, you need a certain amount of stuff to get Act 3, but yeah. Anyways, good stuff. I don't need to sing its praises much more. If you like Metroidvanias, it's a must play. play the first one first. It's good as well, but it's just an awesome example of just like a passionate small team who just made a lot of game because they wanted to make a lot of game, and they got a good bar of quality on it, worth the wait and all that. So let me put it on there. This will probably end up in a higher category. Ninja Gaiden Rage Bound. So this is made by the people who did Blasphemous. Doing a little spin-off, sort of classic Ninja Gaiden style game. Just an action platformer. It's good. I think this is a really solid game. Quick kill times, lots of enemies, clean feeling platforming, different characters, one range, one more melee, that combine up. Actually pretty deep in, despite them showing it as like a common thing. It's about halfway in, but lots of side missions. It's cool. It's the big mechanical thing, other than like having like mixed ranges and stuff, is you kill certain guys and it gives you like a colored power up, and then you can kind of insta kill somebody with it. But to insta kill certain people with it, depending on their color, you can get like another one and this and that. And I don't remember exactly how that works, but what it ends up meaning is there's kind of like a flow, like you could say a memorization. You can react to it all, but if you're gonna go back through, you're gonna know this guy's gonna have this thing, and then you could juice up and rock them with it. And yeah, a lot of unlockable equipables and stuff. I kind of wish it was not like a notch system. It kind of would be nice to be able to equip some more interesting stuff. There's some that are just too good for casual play, but lots of different customized like super moves. Once again, I kind of was there some utility on some of them. You kind of have to like pick one, so you sort of just pick the one that obviously works super well. Not yet. I want to play the Japanese ones at some point. I've seen through some old AVGN videos, but not yet. I'd like to though. I would want to play the Japanese ones because the Western ones I think are like way harder with way less checkpoints and stuff. I don't know if it was like a rental buster thing, but I'd rather if I'm gonna play them, I might as well play the less annoying versions that are more close to the like intent of the games. It's like Echo the Dolphin, where like the Western one is like a ball buster, but like it's not supposed to be that hard. So I don't care about them trying to kill blockbusters, some shit. I'd rather just play the OG. Same with like Castlevania 2, with like the translation issues and not having the map and stuff like that. It's like yeah, they're supposed to be hard. I'm sure they're even hard on the Japanese versions. I do want to play them. Seem good. But I'll probably play the classic Vanias first. Like Castlevania 1 through 3 and stuff. And all the games like that. I'll skip Super Castlevania 4 because I've already done it. Although I could replay it, I guess, for fun. But I'd like to do like, Dracula, Rondo of Blood, and all that stuff. But yeah, this was good. Looks good. Sounds good. A lot of Ninja Gaiden, just music remixes with a little bit of that kind of indie metal thing going on. Yeah, I always thought that was funny. That was the old myth back in the day that like the Japanese ones were the hardest, and the Western gamers like it easier. When in reality, a lot of the time the Japanese games were like way easier because of like rental busting or because of like goofy bullshit like that. Yeah, I think Castlevania is the same way. I think CB3 is like easier in Japanese as well. So, um, Yeah, it'd be kind of cool to be in on the conversation with like retro enthusiasts about how hard their Western version is, but honestly, I got plenty of super hard games to play. I'd probably rather go closer to the dev's intent. I don't care about rental busting shit. I think it'd be kind of fun to compare those against what people see in the Western versions on stream, so I'll probably play those ones. Uh, there's no lack of actually extremely hard shit, and then those won't be easy anyways. Castlevania and Ninja Gaiden are not simple games. But yeah, it is an odd little assumption that somehow has like survived. Yeah, exactly. So I definitely want to try to find the best version, no doubt. It's tough sometimes, certain remasters and ports, can change one thing and ruin some other thing. And obviously, for something that old, it's more just regional differences. A little easier to navigate, but I'm not going to probably be playing any crazy remakes. And if I do, I'd rather play them as like their own thing on the side. Speaking of, I still need to play Metroid 1 and 2. Do it. Ugh. Yeah, that'd be cool to do. Sorry, I slept poorly last night. Yeah, Ninja Gaiden Rage Jam, good. I don't think it was like the craziest game ever. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just very clean but Ninja Gaiden style game. It's not trying to like change the world on how smooth like the jumping and the movement is and all that. But as far as like I said, kill time, um, the flow at which the enemies come in, how much you have to learn on each boss, um, the level of forgiveness and combo and stuff there is, all that kind of shit is pretty well done. They're obviously really good pixel artists. I've liked them since they did The Last Door. Blasphemous looks great. Well, the second one a little less so, but cool dev, Spanish dev, I think. I hope it did well. I didn't play the new Shinobi that I think Konami or whatever the fuck put out. Heard that one was a little iffier, but some people really liked it. But I don't really have any big problems with Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. It is what it is. You see the kind of game it is on the surface here. There is replay value and like new endings and stuff and hard modes. Lots of side stuff. I did all the side missions, but I didn't do a replay. Yeah. It's cool. This is one of those genres where it's super competitive. There's like a million through history, so it's hard to really like break insane new ground. But just being a solid version of an action platformer is already really cool. The standards are pretty high. I could first of all really, yeah, the time it would take for EU stuff, even not even that many generations ago, was wild. I can only think of a couple instances of EU getting stuff that nobody else did, like with the sequel to Hotel Dusk, The Last Window. That was like EU only. Options for first aid run story might include the musical play at a slower tempo. Yeah, that's fucked. I'm glad that in a way you could say standardization of certain things. It's like when it comes to the consolidation of the industry is worse. But in some ways, holy fuck, dude. Everything releasing at a more global at a more global release, window, not having as many differences between like the tech. Um, there's still obviously bullshit censorship changes and localization stuff, but man, yeah, I'm glad most of that is not something you have to worry about anymore. You just got fucked over on Xenoblade 1 on the Wii. Oh, yeah. I know people were big. I remember back in the day, people would beg Reggie for like the JRPGs that everybody got that like the US or whatever didn't. It was like Xenoblade, like um, Pandora's Tower. It wasn't Infinite on Discovery. That was a different one. But Xenoblade was like the jewel or whatever. And Yeah, I remember people begging for those for so long until it finally happened. But I don't remember when the EU got those, and if the content was changed. Yeah, it took forever. I don't know why, especially when it was like even voice acted by in English already. I don't know what the hell the deal was. It's just regional people thinking certain markets are, like I mean JRPGs at that time probably weren't seen as like a super viable like big market thing. I mean we were in the dude bro. We were either in super casual motion era or the dude bro shooter era for most people. Like if for some reason all the JRPG enthusiasts just disappeared a generation later, but so there was probably that assumption, fucking the US always, you know, it is at times, but also assumed, it's like, you know, especially in that era, because it's the dude bro shooter era a bit, that, those kinds of games probably wouldn't be the thing, but so maybe that's part of it. I'm sure weird regional laws and stuff like that. But I mean, there's already so many games, more and more games all the time releasing globally that I don't know. There's still a lot of exclusive Japanese only shit that releases, and I'd imagine more than most regions do anymore these days, but not like it used to be, thank God. I hate that shit. I mean, you get your problems like regional pricing and all that being fucked, but things do exist in most regions at least, outside of translations. Yeah, I didn't have Xenoblade on the Wii. I ended up playing it way later. I don't know when it finally came out on the Wii, but it missed my radar at the time. Yeah, I need to do Contra as well. I mean, I've played so many games inspired by all these. Like, Blazing Chrome and shit. Blazing Chrome's fucking awesome too. Like Contra. Like there's a dump truck cleaning the trash out. I can barely think, so let that finish before we move on to the next. And I played a lot of my games in the last couple months, huh? There's just a lot of really long shit earlier this year. Yeah, I haven't cemented which game series I want to do next, but I do want to do a series playthrough. Probably gonna be the Mega Man X games. I thought about doing the classic Manias, but I think I'm in the mood for the Mega Man X stuff. That will include some non-platformers, just for fun. There's like a Mega Man X JRPG and the Gotcha that has an offline version now. Kind of interested in seeing what that looks like, but mostly it's just platform. That might be the next thing I do once we finish with all this. So we'll see. All right, thank you. I'm actually gonna take a piss though. Oh yeah. I mean, there's still violent censorship, probably more in like China and stuff like that, but Christ, man. Some of the Australian and like German like censorship, even back like the Gears of War days, just like the kinds of ratings they'd get and changes they'd have to do. It's quite a bit, but there's still a lot of that. But I don't know as much from Germany and stuff these days. I think there was less standards for that kind of change. People would just be allowed to make like huge sweeping changes to certain content like that. I think having a more online globalized world means more people will talk about that and see those kinds of differences. A lot of people just don't know. It's like, hey, I had Dragon Warrior. Like, no, you had Dragon Quest, but you have no idea because who's going to tell you otherwise, right? Like, you got Dragon Warrior. It's labeled, it's the wrong number and everything, right? That kind of deal. So, or like that one, there's that one Tales game, like it's like Tales of Destiny 2 or something, but it's actually a completely separate game because something about the name Tales of Eternia was like licensed by some random company. I don't think it's like a Disney thing. It might have been like, yeah, it might have been like a Mickey Mouse thing. And in the West, it's like it says it's a sequel, but it's not a sequel to a game. And then they make an actual sequel, and it's called the exact same thing. Just like weird shit like that. That's like a lot of that's fucking dead. I'd hope, but who knows? I'll be right back. Yeah, exactly. You go for the lowest entry point. Well, it's like a lot of like nowadays where there's like China's such a big market that a lot of gotchas because China has more, I think, censorship around like certain depictions of dudes and fan service. They'll like lower tit sizes and make longer pants and stuff, and that'll just globally release because they don't want to keep up with multiple versions. So whatever the big market or whatever one market has is just what everybody else has. There was a point in time where, WoW or whatever, and it might still be that way, you know, there'd be like a specific like China client or something, but you know, because you can't have like, I think like skulls and skeletons, stuff like that. So they'll change all that stuff, but you know, a lot of time you just, you know, one country's change, as long as I guess that's not like a game breaker for people, they'll just change all of them. Yeah. I mean, in the even in the West, like Ocarina of Time, I think Ganondorf's blood was his blood green in the North American version, or was his blood red? I've seen it on so many different streams now. I don't actually remember. Oh yeah, that's a thing. A lot of Japanese devs will say. I think Vanillaware said that before. They don't want to do PC releases because like their art will be like ripped or like modded or some weird shit. Not that it isn't already on like consoles. I think they're just probably draconian and don't want to like do PC stuff because they're like really old school game devs. They make great games, really good games. I just wish they. I think they said that Sega and Alice have like tried to get them to do like PC ports, so they just won't do it. They're just missing out on money, really. But yeah, that was the thing with Judgment for a bit, wasn't it? As the talent agencies in Japan are supposed to be extremely protective, and Judgment's actor, that Yakuza spin-off game, is supposed to be a really big deal. And so that was supposed to be like a big deal on like why they wouldn't allow a PC port. They eventually did, but I think that was supposed to be a big drama thing. It's funny because you get guys like Keanu Reeves or like, you know, people like that who like are like all for it or like joke about it, you know. It's like porn mods or something, but I mean, it's one of those things like that's just gonna happen no matter what with anything with art. And now, especially with like your fucking AI crap, you can make CG stuff. I'm not saying like you shouldn't, you know, try to protect your rights or your shit or something, but that's not a reason to not do a PC port. That will happen regardless. You might as well get something out of a lot of that, out of the release of it, some money, and stay on top of the story or the game there. My opinion. But Violet, yeah, I'm not familiar. Hmm. It's like a hating mods thing. Just because it's on PC doesn't mean like everybody uses mods and it's just immediately like fucked. And not that it wouldn't be that way eventually on console, anyways. I mean, I get what they're saying there, and that's up to them to do that. That's, you know, you do what you want. Nobody's forcing you. Um, but I play PC games all the time, and I don't mod almost any of them. Like, I'm pretty heavy duty into playing games. I prefer the original intent before I get into like mod stuff. A lot of times it's just little fixes. Hell, I'd even say some PC games only even work because of modding shit. Obviously, PC in general is a bit more of a mixed bag on how usable it is at times compared to like certain consoles, but the amount of choice you get on it, the amount of options and, on platforms, and visual fidelity, and then obviously stuff like modding, you know, that keeps games in circulation and talked about and letting like fan bases thrive and celebrate these games is just so much greater than console stuff. It's just wild to like just not want to be a part of that at all. Because somebody's gonna make a porn mod, maybe. I mean, it's up to them, I guess. My thing is like, people rip these fucking models off of consoles anyway. I don't know. I just don't think it. I think it's if you care about that, that's fine. I think it's just not like a guarantee to protect you from that. I mean, maybe it's supposed to be like it's just more easy on like PC. I don't know. Couldn't they just implement like more ways to like stop people from being able to mod their game on PC? Isn't there plenty of games that do that? I mean, I'm not like a huge de novo guy or anything like that, but like, don't a lot of games do all that kind of shit? I don't know. I don't know much about this team. I don't know anything about it, but yeah, I'm not talking about them specifically. It's just that it is a like topic I've heard in the past about anti-modding and shit. Capcom's had that. I think after the Chun-Li tits thing during that FGC moment, they've cracked down a little bit more on like modding and stuff in their games, but naked Chun-Li, that's so funny, so harmless too, but it is funny, man. I guess if you don't know the story, there's like an FGC fighting game stream at one point, like a competitive one, and the spectator had a mod for like naked Chun Li or whatever still on, so this guy picks Chun Li. Yeah. And on stream, it's like naked Chun or something. Yeah, I don't know. I think that kind of thing is like, I get these like spikes in this region. They're acid related. I'm pretty sure. You're gonna have to like stretch them out a little bit. No, not a stroke, but I've been eating more shitty this last week or two. Um, I haven't had acid reflux, but sometimes the acid appears in different ways, right? Either like a heartburn, and sometimes like little spikes of like, like slight needle pain here and there. In the chest region. Yeah, but I don't think it's like a heart attack or anything. Something I've had in the past, a lot lately. It was just kind of weird, but different parts of my body where it's like, ooh, just shit. Probably just need to get more water and exercise more and shit. Stretch. Holiday food eating not the best. PR stunt, and I mean that could be too. It's tough to get attention these days. Some people do some crazy shit for it, but I mean I don't know. I don't know anything about this stuff, so I've just heard like certain devs for different reasons decry like the PC audience or the PC as a platform when it just feels. Usually the reasons are pretty wild. So. But yeah. On to the NES stuff before hopping to the store. That the Scandinavian only NES releases are wild too. For some Mr. Gimmick and a survey, they're currently on cartridge only. Sold for $100. Whoa. Damn. Yeah, that is rare. I wonder if I own anything that's worth a lot of money. Probably not. Who knows though? They're not all boxed or anything anyway, so it's actually played them. But anyways, moving on. Kronos, The New Dawn. So this is by everybody's favorite team, Bloober Team. Made Layers of Fear, The Medium, Observer Redux. They did the Silent Hill 2 remake. They did the Blair Witch game not that long ago. I think most of their old stuff is not terribly great. Most of the Layers of Fear stuff is just kind of jump scare simulators. I thought the Medium was too yappy and underutilized Akira Yamaoka. And, kind of cliffhanger, and it's not really all that interesting. Despite having some cool gimmicks, but they're usually good at visuals. Stuff like Observer Redux looks really nice. Silent Hill 2 remake sounds really good, looks really good. I think they've gotten a lot better over time. While I still prefer Silent Hill 2 over the remake, I think it's totally a cool thing that stands on its own. They've been improving their gameplay, trying to incorporate more gameplay. The production value while still trying to be somewhat creative. One of the pros of some horror stuff. Try to be more wild, even in a big AAA kind of way. Yeah, so this is their latest. Came out around October-ish. I thought it was clean. I have my problems with it. Generally, the ending, where the story goes. I really like the slow burn, the potential of what the story feels like it could be. I like the voice acting and kind of how all the lines are delivered, especially on the main character. Not so, maybe a little less on some of the side ones, but it kind of plays like a Resident Evil 2 remake style thing. A little bit of action, a lot of exploration. More linear though. Think of it as like a hub, and then you go out in different spokes, but you have to go in those spokes in a certain order. You can technically go back over some areas, but yeah, it's a problem with the game in a way because there is so much side stuff to grab and loot that every time you have to get like a certain key or object, you have to essentially just run back through a linear zone to get these things, and sometimes they're locked off or you can't do it for a long time. I probably would have liked a few more open areas. They try to, in like some of the hospital sections and stuff, have it be a touch less linear, but for the most part, still really cool. Very atmospheric, very nice visuals. Obviously a very dark game, it's a horror game, but I wouldn't call it really a super scary game. But it definitely builds to have more anticipation through the environments, through the piecemealed story, through the odd characters, and the slow burn that it really can pull off. But even then, like a 10-20 hour thing, it's pretty clean. It's definitely their most fun game. The shooting feels pretty clean. There's not like a whole lot of enemy types, but there's enough little environmental like hazards and things you can use, because it is about kind of like being able to recombobulate like barrels and put stuff back together and all that kind of stuff. It's still a good time. What's up, Rocky? Thank you very much, buddy. Thank you kindly. Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. It's definitely sad that it kind of like starts to run its course by the end of it a bit. Like I said, it's maybe a touch too long. The linearity and the backtracking's a little too shitty, and I don't think it lives up to the anticipation, the potential of like what the plot and the setting kind of could be. But I still think, as far as their games go, and just like horror action games in general, especially with this kind of fidelity, it's still pretty cool. If anybody's like, "Oh, this was the next Dead Space," they're insane. But if you play a lot of horror games, you play a lot of horror action and shooter stuff. It might not be like a Resident Evil tier thing, but it's cool enough. I would recommend giving it a shot, especially like slow burn. But just know it is, through all of its endings, not going to be satisfying. It is not a satisfying conclusion. It's actually pretty shit. But you can just imagine the last third doesn't it? Still cool. But yeah. Not amazing. Boom. Now we're moving on to Etrian Odyssey 1. Well, Untold 1. So this is a remake of Etrian Odyssey 1 on the 3DS. It has two modes you can play. One is like an anime story kind of one, more of your kind of typical JRPG thing. Where the original is just more raw. You're an adventuring group. You show up in the town because they're looking, it's a famous place that you're supposed, you explore the Yggdrasil labyrinth in, and you can find mysteries and sell stuff and kind of make your own little name, and more gameplay focused, but like a nice setup to just kind of facilitate like a mysterious dungeon, right? I think like stuff like 3 does that even better, but that's kind of the original idea of it. There's obviously still more story and twists as you get further in. Won't talk about those, although this spoils probably half of it. And the beginning of the anime story in this one pretty much is an insta spoiler for some of the coolest things I feel like in the original story in the first place, which with less dialogue actually ends up, I feel like, being more impactful because you find it out more naturally instead of through exposition and bullshit. But so anyways, this game has the ability for you to play the original story mode and to play the anime mode. I did not do the anime story mode that they added in. I've heard pretty mixed things on it. Generally, feels like it's kind of just trying to make Etrian Odyssey more palatable to a larger audience. I'm sure in the wake of Persona being extremely successful for them, this is the same. This is Atlas, right? Some of the same people working on some of it. I'm sure that's what it's a response to. I don't think they made another one with the story Etrian Odyssey Untold 2, and then they kind of just stopped. I don't think a lot of people like it. I don't think a lot of the Japanese audience likes it. This series just got rooted more into one sec, this music. It's definitely a series made more around gameplay focus, your own kind of like customized party, and all the agency that kind of comes with that over like following, a very specific group of people and story and plot. I mean, you still have missions, right? Like, we need you to do X on the 4th floor, and that's kind of like, your next goal, and they'll give you a little something for it, or to kill this guy. It's not like it's completely, like a Grimrock 2 where you just fucking show up and you just go. There's still a bit of like rails, and they are linear games. I mean, you explore like a floor at a time, but they're linear. That you will be going deeper and deeper down. But yeah, at the end of it, it's a first-person dungeon crawler, more of like a JRPG kind of focused one. It's less about like little secrets and interactions with the environment, and more mapping a zone, puzzling around enemies, and the battle mechanics, and like customizing your group and planning for like what that group's gonna look like by the end game, and retooling them and equipping them and stuff like that. Yeah, so I played that mode, the classic mode, on hard, whatever the hardest was. It was cool. I probably liked it less than 3 by a lot, and less than 4 by a bit. I think while it has a cool like surprise kind of by the end of it, it's a little less interesting of a setup. I think some of the atmosphere is not quite as juicy. I think some of the gameplay stuff, like the randomized grimoires and shit, are a little too RNG. It's hard to even really want to care about them that much, but they can still be super powerful. A clean class variety, nothing psychotic, but pretty cool. It's just like a very just clean stock Etrian Odyssey game. I liked it. I don't think I was writing home like super crazy about singing its praises, but it was a good time. It was cool shooting the shit with Goto about it. Long game for sure. This one doesn't really have like a big side mode like in 3 and 4 where you're doing like the micro dungeon exploration stuff. In the story mode, I guess it has one you come back to and re-explore a little bit. So there's not really many pace breakers. The town's not that interesting. Most of the NPCs that you kind of sort of mess with are. There's a lot more like tedium when you come back to the town and have to like you have to drink your tea and you've got to do this and that, not just sell and buy stuff, which adds up. Probably some of the shittiest quests that I've had in the series so far. So there's some pretty annoying ones, but it's still a cool game. I wouldn't say it's where I'd start. I would say it's more for people who, well, I mean, in a way, you could start with it, but so there'd be some of the novelty. But I would say if you just want more Etrian Odyssey, it's probably a good place to go. But I'd still start with like a 3 or 4. Yeah, it could be part of that. Or like the protection of the IP is seen as very different, right? They have a lot more like laws on like streaming and making content for stuff. They have a lot more like Grunion. Yeah, they have a lot more. I feel like of a grip on their IPs, not in always a good way. I think there's a lot to be said about allowing a bit of a looser thing on it. I mean, it's not like it's an umbrella either. I mean, look at Sonic. They just allow whatever the fuck to the point where they're letting fans make like official games, stuff like that. But yeah, it could be some of that too. I'm sure some of that's rooted in like tradition for some of these IPs and companies as well. So. Streamers doing well, thank you. Alright, Silent Hill F. Let's move on to that. But yeah, overall, I would say Etrian Odyssey, Untold One. Good time for sure. But probably not the best of the Etrian Odysseys I've played out of the 3 I have played. And, probably not the starting point I'd recommend. I can't speak for the story mode, but I think if you're getting into an Etrian Odyssey for a story mode, you're into the wrong series. There's plenty of other good JRPGs on that front. Silent Hill F. Seems like it. So it goes with the fresh account and first time message. Too many bots these days, right? Dangerous out there for anyone. And it's dangerous out there for these Japanese schoolgirls in Silent Hill Ave. So this was made by the team who made Ariverse and an assortment of other little things like that. It didn't really have a whole lot of. I mean, maybe some of the talent there. I think some people worked on like Pikmin and stuff like that, but not a whole lot of titles under their belt. But you still have Akira Yamaoka doing the music, who's the composer for most of Silent Hills. They didn't actually play Ariverse. I don't know, especially because it came out like way later, right? I don't know if it was even supposed to be all that good. Wasn't there like another one that came out too? Like for the next game? I can't quite remember. But yeah. So the big thing for me, the appeal of this one, other than just being a Silent Hill game that's original, not a remake, was that it was written by Ryukishi 07. Who wrote Higurashi, Mineko, Higabon, all that stuff. So that was kind of interesting. I was kind of curious how his VN style, where he really puts his heart on his sleeve and his writing, would kind of translate to a very subtle, more symbolic kind of IP that's not known for being terribly blunt force about everything. Um, some of the early previews were a little iffy, the combat and all that, which I think holds true. It is definitely the worst part of this game, and I would say brings it down a good bit. But I don't know. There was enough other elements. I mean, obviously, it's not in Silent Hill anymore. It's more, 60s, 70s Japan, and then a mix of that and feudal kind of mysticism. Um, I think overall, Silent Hill F was interesting. I think if you go for like the full 4 playthroughs plus, the story is an interesting puzzle box to solve. Figuring out all of like where the symbolism is, what's really happening, what it's all standing for, what's happened in this town. Um, the more playthroughs you do, you start unlocking like new notes and little side things and the ability to do other endings. It's pretty ballsy doing that. I mean, the other Silent Hills you might discover more by doing more playthroughs, but generally you're getting like a pretty some kind of like, closure in some way. This one really ends with the kind of a mystery. I think most people, I think they're different. I want to say this team did them both. No, I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't remember what all else they did. That was part of what I was kind of worried about on this. But overall, I mean, it's not fucked. It's an interesting enough game. I think it's worth playing. It's a tall ask though to ask. I feel like anybody to play through it as many times as I think as it actually requires to be have that story end up interesting. Um, I think it's. I saw somebody say this game is like a diamond in a fucking like toilet, and that's kind of what how I'd probably agree with that. um, the combat is pure shit. It does not feel smooth. It's way too actiony for the kind of horror environment they're trying to tell you. There's way too much of it. Jesus Christ, if you're gonna play this, do not play it on hard. It is mind-numbingly nonstop, constant action. It takes away from it. It just does not feel good. You can make some interesting OP combos with some of the gear in like New Game Plus, but it's mainly just lets you just play less of it. I would say crank it all the way down to the bottom. Maybe you could leave the puzzle difficulty on like medium. Those are okay, but yeah. There's a bit of exploration. It's not super linear like Chronos was, but it's not quite exactly like the old Silent Hills, but it does attempt to be symbolic and mysterious and stuff, and I think it does a good job at trying to do that in the way that like Silent Hill does. I think the atmosphere is kind of a miss. Not just because it's not Silent Hill. I think Akira Yamaoka stuff is once again barely there. Kind of disappointing. It's a lot more generic. Most of the Dark World is this like kind of Onimusha without the lights on, like mystic kind of feudal Japan thing. I feel like you've seen it 1,000 times. It's not really unique to this. It's not really all that interesting in its own right. Silent Hill, despite taking place in like made up Maine, still felt like unique. It didn't feel like it was just like Americana or something. This feels more like typical, like, you know, like you've seen it before in like a game that takes place in like a horror kind of feudal Japan or something, right? Obviously, the 60s, 70s, whatever time period this is was kind of neat, but a lot of the darker stuff takes place in what's pretty much a generic kind of temple-y, mystic kind of location. I just don't think it's interesting. I don't think they throw enough spin on it with like its own kind of music or how the story works to make like to like contrast what you're used to with something new, right? Like Silent Hills, like it's an apartment complex that's dirty, but they have like the way the fog and the music works and like the enemies and the story, it makes that location feel kind of special. Not so much in a lot of this. The actual like town zone, which is definitely more interesting, is better at it. But even then, I just don't think it ever gripped me in the way Silent Hill did. It wasn't as evocative. The mix of atmosphere and music and all that just didn't hit me. When I was playing like Silent Hill, the old Silent Hills for the first time, which isn't that long ago, there was like a certain dreaminess, like a certain just I don't know, a certain vibe. It's hard to describe it because that's kind of what's special about Silent Hill is that unique feel in the first three. Um, that's really hard to replicate, and I'm fine with it being something different than that feeling. But I want to have some kind of something that feels special and that kind of thing. Instead, it feels kind of more generic horror. Um, it's somebody writing die on the fucking wall 1,000 times, or she's freaking out, or it's the long hair spooky girl, it's the yokai demons all mixed up and stuff, and maybe it relates to her friends a bit, but like it's you know it could be Siren, it could be Onimusha, it's not really all that like unique like Silent Hill was. I mean, you could point to Silent Hill and be like, "Oh, it's Jacob's Ladder" or some shit like that. But I think it does its own deal, and with using like all the different elements of what makes a game, right? It's not just the music; it was a lot of stuff. So I don't think this hits those highs at all. I think what you do get out of this is an interesting story to unmask, but it takes 3 to 4 playthroughs of pretty shitty gameplay to do it. I think if you're really interested in Silent Hill and you're in for the long haul, definitely do the full playthroughs. Read all the lore, try to figure it all out. The game surprisingly got more secrets and more hidden away than you might imagine. I don't want to spoil the whole thing. I try to not have this be a spoilery little fucking end of the year event, but there's some cool stuff there. Your basic playthroughs, you're gonna get a lot of kind of like overly dramatized high school drama bullshit and all that, but I wouldn't say overacted moments, but definitely like very extreme things that I feel like I'll get owned a lot better after a few playthroughs. But in the first ones, just kind of be kind of whatever. Like I said, I never think it hits the atmosphere it needs to. I think the gameplay is just not good. It's really boring and repetitive. The old Silent Hills, everybody always thinks like the way to fucking one up all the old Silent Hills is just improve that gameplay. But there was nothing really. I mean, there wasn't like godly, but like it was serviceable in the old ones. It was simple, but you didn't have to overly focus on it. It rewarded the exploration. It was pretty easy overall. It was more focused on like moving through this world at a steady pace, you know, exploring the how odd and surreal it was, trying to like piece together the symbolism and just kind of like getting lost in the vibe. You know, more gameplay, more fighting, more souls dodging, more equipment, more flipping around guys, and slow mo, and super moves. Like, yeah, it's a more fleshed out combat system, but it kind of flies in the face of what's even like interesting about these in the first place. And then in its own right, it's so overbaked that it just ends up being like extremely repetitive and dull by the end of it. Not to mention unfitting for what's going on. So I I'm gonna put it as like notable. I don't I kind of want to put it as good. I'm not gonna put it as just like good in its own right. I think it's definitely one of the better Silent Hills. Most of them are shit. Game suck and game good. Game suck, game good. So not putting it anywhere kind of means for me that it's sort of mediocre. Um, I think it's notable. I think it's interesting. There is something about figuring out the story. I think surprisingly Rikishi's the only one who didn't phone in the whole fucking thing. Maybe that and some of the environment artists, more so on how um I guess you'd say lived in, how believable this town is for the time period. Less so how it feels as like a surrealist horror thing. Um so I don't know. It's it's no Silent Hill, that's for sure. It's its own little deal. Um, but less so because of the story specifically. I would say it's the most symbolic out of all of them. I'll tell you right now. I guess spoilers because I think it's kind of important. Spoilers. I don't think anything in this game is real. It is all stand-ins for something else going on. I don't even think she is her age. She's actually like 20 or something. It is all symbolic. So it's kind of neat to like figure all that out and try to like piece it together. It's also funny if you're familiar with his work, how much he reuses. There was an article even recently where he just says, "Yeah, I just like those names for females. They're just straight out of Higurashi and Minako." He's just done. He's never found a better name. So he just like names them all the same shit. He has half of his Higurashi twists in this game. Um, but it's kind of neat figuring it all out. But it requires way too much effort, and you have to put up with way too much actual games. So. And it's not, at the end of the day, it's still not like that crazy. I'd prefer like a more dreamy, abstracted, unexplainable game than like something where you could just piece together every element. But still cool. Anyways, gonna move on to the next one. Spoilers are over. Sorry, we're closed. Let me see how close we are to the end of this music. Pretty much there. I think it's a little. It's not really chill though. Yeah. Sorry, we're closed. I guess we're on the horror month at this point, right? So sorry, we're closed is kind of a Resident Evil light thing with like where you swap into first person shooting combos for the gameplay. You'll swap to combat mode. You need to shoot them in certain areas to get a certain amount of points built up. To use your super shot, usually on harder guys, or just you can kill them with smaller stuff outright. Even your melee ends up being first person and stuff. Pretty snappy, neat little combat system. You need to be kind of quick enough. I used it on controller and it was still fine. I'm sure on PC it feels even better there. There's not like that much combat because it is also split with being kind of a social. I would say actually like a half of this, if not 2/3, might even be like story. It is about as focused on talking to different people and going down their little routes or doing little hybrid romance things around your apartment complex and your block of town as it is with like the Resident Evil stuff. It's not really spooky either. It's definitely more just like stylized. It's a very like kind of romance sexual kind of focused thing. The entire idea is there's this like demon fallen angel or whatever that like essentially curses you, and if you can't provide it love or something or some kind or whatever the fuck, you essentially gonna get killed. And so it's kind of you exploring this like underworld, this like demon world that exists alongside like the real world and all that stuff. Tries to explore themes of like romance and um all that kind of stuff through the trappings of kind of this like horror thing. It's like it's not really spooky. It's not really too much focus on that. It's more set dressing. Um, yeah, it was neat. I don't know. I don't feel super strong about it. I think it's got a neat style. It's definitely not something you see as much. I think the light Resident Evil zones they take like an hour to go through. You know, with a little bit of backtracking and puzzle stuff. Um, with some of the upgrades you can get and the first person gameplay is cool. I think all that's neat. I think it's well realized. Um, I think some of the dialogue is like human enough, solid enough, regardless of how much you like the style of it. But I don't know. I don't find myself thinking back on it a lot. I don't think it really was like too special for me. I appreciate what a lot of it did and had a more like fun with it at times. The story is such a big deal on it that while there's some stuff to chew on and like start a conversation with in there, and there is a lot of endings you can go for, um, I don't know if really the story resonated enough for me in any particular way. It wasn't didn't feel like it was like poorly written, but um, at times it felt more kind of focused on the aesthetics of like love and romance and like that kind of sexual energy and stuff than it was really giving me an interesting story about them, if that makes sense. You know, like everything's about like some kind of romance and somebody's talking about dating and romance and it's like it's almost like an aesthetic. It's that's what I mentioned when I was playing it more than it is something that I feel like really like resonates. So for that, I don't know. I kind of want to put it as good, but I was kind of I'm not like super crazy on it either. I'll just probably leave it where it is, but um, not bad. I mean, I think if you're really into Resident Evil, I wouldn't recommend it on those grounds alone. But if you like those elements of Resident Evil and you're willing to play anything that has a bit of it in it, then maybe go for it. But yeah, it was interesting though. I think it was free on Epic like a day or two ago as well. So speaking of, any new free shit that I'll never end up playing? Oh, Viewfinder. I would actually take this off my Steam list. Heard that was a decent little puzzle game. It's like $8 right now. Steam. It's one of those things where you almost would rather spend $5 to $8 to play something and not install the Epic launcher, but I ain't got the kind of money for that kind of waste, man. But yeah. Next game, um, Repose. I like this one a good bit. This is very niche. This one's very niche. It is a first-person dungeon crawler puzzle game. Um, So how it works is you don't really have like RPG mechanics or anything. It's real time. So you certain enemies will react at a certain speed, or if you come at them from a certain angle, you can kill them using certain methods. Like maybe this guy, you need to use a gun. You have a certain amount of ammo. You have an axe. You need a certain amount of time. So you kind of have a floors in this dungeon where you need to kind of sort of figure out like what am I going to use when and what direction am I going to take because I have a limited amount of steps in this game. And you'll do that in every floor to like unlock a shortcut, and then you'll probably die or you'll be able to rest, and then you'll take another path, and you'll kind of just like unlock more paths until you can get to the next zone, get a few more mechanics, learn a little bit more about the story. It's short, but it's very atmospheric. Looks really cool. I like a lot of the music. Story's fine. With all the secrets and the secret endings and stuff, I think it ends up being a little spicier than you'd think, but it's not godly. The more dialogue they put in it, it's one of those where it's like, I need less dialogue. Like, not everybody's an awesome writer. Right? I'd be the same. But I don't think it kills it. But they really own a cool atmosphere. I think the idea of like a dungeon crawler puzzle thing where like you take the mechanics of kind of like a Grim Rocky sort of deal and turn it into like a 5-hour puzzle game or less. I think it might have been less than that. It's just neat. It's not super difficult. It's just a bit of trial and error and like a little bit of reacting on the fly to stuff. I think if this looks like atmospheric to you, looks kind of interesting. It is. So let me give it a peek. I think if you're expecting some kind of like really out there, like something you're gonna really dig deep into story wise, like something really abstract or symbolic or something. Maybe not as much. There is elements of it for sure. It's not really super spooky either. By looking like it probably is. But it's still pretty cool, man. I really liked it overall. It's giga cheap on Steam, pretty sure. Niche, a me thing probably. I was just kind of in the zone for this, and it kind of hit just right. I think it was a simple enough deal. I think there's plenty you could poke at in terms of like it not being like a traditional dungeon crawler, or maybe not having enough depth to certain things. But sometimes I just like something that's simple. It keeps to in its lane, explores it a bit, and calls it good, right? Like not every. Sometimes I feel like you add too much bullshit. It kind of waters down the core. Um, so it's kind of nice seeing some of these like just more short indies that are very focused. Yeah, liked it for that. All right, Haunting Ground, the cult classic Capcom Boogeyman game. You play as a very jiggly lady running from freaks of nature and other ladies and not really monsters, guys in robes and guys with guns, and there are little monsters and stuff around this kind of mansion. This is made by the Clock Tower 3 devs, I think. You don't fight. You have a dog that you can train kind of throughout the game by like, affirming it did a good job or reprimanding it or giving it little treats and healing it. The entire thing is kind of this extension of like Clock Tower esque stuff where it's like about a boogeyman. It's about like something chasing you down. This one just has kind of like with Clock Tower 3, a lot of them. You get kidnapped essentially. I'm not gonna say why. I guess we'll figure that out yourself. But you essentially have to explore these set zones, open zones. Um, and kind of find a way out of each of them while avoiding some kind of like boss. Um, Sometimes maybe there's other little dudes, stuff like that. Not too much though. Um, sec. Brothers, if you want to do food, throat might need a break. I thought this game sucks shit. I was not a big fan. I think the novelty of the boogeyman thing is so played out nowadays. Um, it's maybe more cute at this point. Although I liked it better in the original Clock Tower. I think I love Scissorman in that. He's fucking awesome. This is so repetitive and so tedious and generally so uninteresting story wise. Fucking with the dog, running from guys, hiding for like 10 minutes just to find out they're just still there. The way the fucking music is, you losing control of your character all the time. It's just not really that fun. It's not spooky. As soon as it happens a couple times, you've kind of seen the whole fucking game. It's just different people who have different levels of like hunting you down. Trying to pathfind through this huge mansion while still like avoiding these guys and having to backtrack and puzzle and stuff. It's just kind of a pain, man. I think for the time it's pretty interesting. It's one of those that's grown poorly over the years. The amount of fucking boogeyman hiding from guys in locker games is a joke nowadays. It's so common. Um, you'll get your stuff like your alien isolations that try to do something a little bit more special with it and all that, but like, it's not a new thing. It wasn't a new thing when this came out, but in this format, maybe it was a bit more unique. But I don't like the execution much. And what you get outside of the really annoying gameplay and stuff is an all right looking world with, I don't know, not really that great atmosphere. I like the zany, so bad it's good feel of like Clock Tower 3 more. This takes itself a little more seriously, but it's still goofy. And it's just like, it doesn't hit an off kilter enough kind of like camp, but it isn't also serious enough. And it's just like, so you're really just here for the gameplay. Some of the visuals are alright, but nothing to really write super home about. Like, it's a nice mansion, old stone mansion thing. It's really mostly about the gameplay, and I just find it to be a fucking pain in the ass. I was not super into it. I thought I would be too, considering I like Clock Towers. I like the old Clock Towers and stuff. Dumbest dog in gaming, yeah, that too, man. I mean, it was just a pain. It was just annoying to play. I was like, just not find much joy in it. I'm gonna go see if my brother wants to grab some food real quick, because I might need like a throat, resting. If he says no, we'll just continue. But be right back. Alright, this is I'm gonna go ahead. This in case this is finished. Oh, let me take a listen to it. That's the thing about listening to Yume Nikki music is like, I mean, a lot of that's like horror shit. The guillotine room, dude. That's how it feels to play Haunting Ground. I would escape. Here you go. Aztec rave. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and get some food. Rest the old throat. We will continue. Eclipsium. Get back. Turn the stream off for now and go ahead and chill just for a little bit. Protect the old throat. Like I said, must have been snoring or something last night, or my throat was dry. That comboed with these end of the year streams. I already lose my voice usually by the end of it anyway, so go ahead and take a little protection. We'll continue in a bit. Thank you very much for hanging out and shooting the shit. Appreciate the trolls coming out, new accounts. All that was not a troll. I apologize. People are gonna think you're a bot. You gotta come in a bit more. You gotta come in half-mast before you go.